cars back on track. History come alive in the hands of many of the drivers who have taken them to victory in the sport's greatest events, as well as those who helped spread the Porsche name around the world in art, books, and film.
Rennsport is a universe for love of Porsche, and my dad loved Porsche.
But Rennsport is more than just racing. Thousands of Porsche enthusiasts have brought their cars to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca to share their singular passion for all things Porsche. Welcome to Porsche Rennsport Reunion VI.
Full immersion. Hundreds of Porsche race cars together on the circuit. The wail of engines, the squeal of tires, more than a hint of racing fuel in the air. The blur of livery paint as the cars rocket past. Porsche Rennsport Reunion is truly a carnival for the senses.
This kind of motor racing, this on display for Porsche, is unique in the world. You must see it, you must hear it, you must feel it.
The cars come from all around the world. Hundreds of Porsche race cars, 1950s sports cars, 1960s prototypes, Can-Am cars, Group C, GT1, Spiders, Coupes, modern hybrids. The universe of Porsche all in one place.
When you are a member of the Porsche family, you are part of a very special family. There's nothing you can measure with some pressure or high voltage, but you feel it.
You see all the legends and you realise that you are now part of all the history that's gone before.
And as racing drivers, we get to meet the fans and tell the stories of when and where and how fast. Porsche Rennsport Reunion is one of the greatest events of its kind, and every few years we all look forward to coming back to reconnect and to watch the show.
Welcome to Sunday here at Rennsport Reunion VI, and it's the last but definitely not the least of the 3 days. The word is out, not just in the Monterey Bay Peninsula, but amongst car enthusiasts, and not just Porsche enthusiasts. As you can see behind me, there are thousands of people that have made their way here to the WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. They're here to see their racing idols. They're here to see these iconic cars, but they're also here to share the passion. Of course, we've got a lot of great racing ahead. I'll be swapping my microphone for a race suit and helmet sometime later today when I get behind the wheel of an open-top Porsche Kramer K8. There is so much to see and do. I suggest we get on with it.
I'll ask you now.
Thanks, Justin. Couldn't have said it better myself. And we are ready to go racing with Group Number 1, the PCA or Porsche Club of America Scholler Friedman Cup, for an outstanding array of 911 products dating all the way up to 2016. The oldest car I find in the group as I scan this enormous field of 52 cars is 1969, a 911T. And I'm also happy to say we are rejoined here on day 3 by author, producer, and contributor to Automobile Magazine, Bassem Wassef. Welcome back, Bassem.
Thanks for having me. Good to be here. You know, Bob, I've also seen a couple of GT4s out there, and there is a 944.
This is the We Are the World of the Porsche community here.
Sure,
it's everything.
Yeah.
Well, I guess every collection of cars like these has to have a class that covers just about everything. Decades of Porsche classics. And as you can see, Porsche Club of America stalwarts.
See a Boxster going by in the middle there.
Boy, I wonder, given the enormous size of the Porsche Club of America, how many of those owners own a race car as well as a street machine? With 52 entries, there's plenty.
It's going to be a lot of traffic out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, And a GTP car in there, too.
You got to have that.
Talk about an outlier.
Oh, my gosh. Let's see, who do we know in this group? No hot pros out there that we know of. But I wouldn't be surprised. And these guys will get after it. Down to turn 2, the Andretti hairpin. As they begin to sort themselves out. What a mess of cars.
Well, and these guys are going to get after it too, because these are guys who have owned and raced these cars in quite a few different events. You can do a lot of CCA racing with this stuff, a lot of club events with it. So there's going to be a lot of guys that are really used to running these cars on a regular basis and know the cars inside and out.
There goes the GTP car, the 2008 Riley-built Daytona prototype from the earliest days of that class. Boy, has the technology developed among the DPIs these days in the IMSA WeatherTech Championship. Plunging down the corkscrew. Whoa, bit of a wide line there. Pick a line, any line.
And they just keep coming.
Yeah.
Look at that.
I mean, it really kind of takes you back. I mean, this kind of a race could have been held a decade or more ago. With these cars out there. And the early lead goes to Rob Todd in his 2018 Porsche GT3 Cup car. All right, granted, I mean, all Porsches are great performers, but, I mean, this is kind of picking on somebody with a 2018 Cup car out there.
There's no balance of power to even it out this time.
No.
Watching a fight for second here with that prototype. Marshall in the number 12.
Yep, Pierce Marshall from Dallas, Texas. I wonder if that's an ex-Penske racing car. Roger's team raced these sorts of cars in the what is now the WeatherTech series for some time with Porsche Power.
The 84 Jesse Menser out of San Diego, California, with a 2015 GT3 Cup car, running in third.
That is kind of blurring the line between GTs and prototypes. But again, this is the Porsche Club of America Scholler Friedman Cup. Pretty much run what you brung, it appears. This is for 4th place.
The 31 is Al Tilley out of Salt Lake City. He brought a 2013 GT3R with him. The car ran in the Pirelli World Challenge. Ryan Dial drove that car. He's done a lot of NASA racing with the machine.
Great guy. A great drive. Oh, off goes the right front.
Hang on. The great thing about running here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is all the runoff area.
That could have been really ugly.
That could have been really bad because it's a very high-speed section of racetrack.
Absolutely.
But all the gravel and the sand traps built there did a great job of mowing the car down, and Al was able to bring it safely to a stop.
That was some nice driving. Let's have another look at what happens. Watch the right front wheel, and it just departs the car. It looks like wheel and tire.
Sheesh.
Watch where the tire goes, Bob.
Heads up. Is it going to clear? Yes, it will.
Watch
it's going to
out,
clear
right,
the fence. Oh,
right.
my gosh.
Oh.
And
right over the SUV and down the hill it went.
that's going to go all the way.
Those two guys.
That's going to downtown Monterey.
Unbelievable.
Wow, that tire is somewhere down on Highway 68 right about now.
That could have been so much worse.
Holy cow.
They see the wheel nut departing first. The center lug wheel nut.
Yep.
Just unwound itself.
Or wasn't put on tight enough, huh?
I guess not. Of course, that'll be the loaded tire as he turns in and brakes for the Andretti hairpin. My gosh.
I have never seen a tire clear the fence over there like that. That was incredible.
The person needs to buy a lottery ticket right now.
Yeah.
Look at that thing bouncing.
Well, and you get the air compressing all that energy in the tire, and wow. Well, let's hope it's nothing more than a souvenir for somebody down in the valley, because there's a long drop-off from there down. A lot of the trailers that transported the cars here to WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca are parked down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if there's nobody camping down there.
Whew.
Well, and remember, that's one of the highest speed sections, too. As he's approaching the braking point going into Andretti, he is flat out.
Yep.
Well into triple-digit speeds there.
Oof. What a way to start our day here. And this is going to be a fairly lengthy extraction, I would think, getting that car out of the sand. Now let's hear from Justin Bell once again.
Well, I just bumped into Laurie Schultz, who in the Porsche world has quite a famous last name here in North America, and she's actually the chief steward of this series. And I just asked Laurie, I said, how many people from the Porsche racing community, club racing community, wanted to be here? Because this must be the hot ticket of the year. She said literally hundreds, nearly thousands of drivers from all their regions across the country. They were just desperate to be a part of this. And they selected them through a committee down to this, it looks like a staggering field of 50 people, but really 50 of the best that they feel represented the club well. And of course, that's based on tenure, you could imagine, performance, attitude. In the Porsche club, attitude counts for a lot, because bad attitude, well, there's been a little bit of that in club racing. So there's a very nice cross-section of people. That's why you see such a diverse range of cars. And literally, they got their invitation after their submission to be in this event, and it's a highlight. Can you imagine, guys, what it's like being a club racer with your car here in the paddock, driving on the same track as, I mean, Neil Jani and all the other drivers that are out there from Porsche factory, as well as the legends, as well as the legendary cars. So it's probably the pinnacle of the club Porsche racing year, until your wheel falls off.
Well, I imagine that's true. The Porsche Rennsport Reunion has grown in popularity. We've mentioned that a number of racetracks around the world have inquired about the possibility of hosting the event. And I would imagine the list of applications to take part is pretty lengthy. I mean, if you're a Porsche Club of America member, you're already passionate about the brand.
Well, and as you're walking through the paddock, one of the things that everybody's talking about is, can't wait for the next one. Just don't know when it is or where it is, but everybody loves it happening here. And one of the big parts of it is the family photo, which took place on Wednesday.
We're not talking about people family. We're talking about race car family, because racing is the heart of Porsche Rennsport Reunion. And this is what took place on Wednesday afternoon of this week.
And Bob, when you come here to one of the key vintage events at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, being asked to participate in the family photo is one of the highlights for any participant. This is one of the things that has been made famous here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, with the Rolex Monterey Motorsports Reunion. All kind of started around that event, taking this big family photo like this, and when they would celebrate a featured mark. And of course, it made perfect sense to do it with Porsche Rennsport Reunion.
And those are not tow vehicles, those tractors you saw. Those are Porsche licensed, Porsche diesel powered tractors. More on that coming up as we go along.
And Basson being invited to take that picture is important too.
That is a big deal. Mark Urbano shot that, and he is a very talented photographer. He does a lot of photography for Porsche. Really good shooter, really nice guy too. I got to say, back on the topic of worldwide racetracks, maybe I'm a little biased because I'm a Californian, but it is so great to have it here. It's such a part of the Porsche thing. You know, if California were a country, it would be the 5th largest market for a Porsche in terms of who buys their cars.
Yeah.
So it does make a lot of sense to have it in California, but I am a little biased.
Here's the incident once again that brought out our full course caution flag, as Al Tiley comes over through turn 1, and just as he gets to the braking zone, off comes the center hub lug, and off comes his right front wheel.
And it's that third bounce of the wheel that really launched it up and over, not just the tire wall, but the wall itself, over the hillside, over the fence, over that SUV. Justin, wait till you see the video of this.
I bet it's quite impressive to see. Oh, I'm looking up on there. Okay, tires bouncing everywhere, Jim. Now, I've seen you at races in North America for, decades, I think. And here you are running these club guys. But in the end, they're just about here driving well-prepared cars on a legendary racetrack. And you're still here. Is it still a passion for you?
Oh, it's still a passion. And, of course, a lot of these cars we had the pleasure of working on back when they were the current vehicles. And a lot of these guys, too. A lot of old faces that, we really have good memories with. Cars are, like they've always been. It's a competitive bunch of fun, and we're out there to get those guys, and it's really going well for us.
Are there any of your old cars out there in the paddock walking around you've seen that you've worked on?
16.
Oh, really?
16 so far, including the Le Mans winner.
You know what that means, Jim? That means you're as old as everyone else around here. But how's your guy doing out there?
We're actually leading. We were on the pole in this thing. We're under yellow at the moment, but we'll see how it comes out.
Just leading. All right, let me carry on going. I'll find someone else. See you later.
I wonder if Justin's going to interview anybody not named Bell this weekend.
Make it a drinking game.
There you go.
No relation, Jim Bell to Justin Bell. Justin, of course, is the son of five-time Le Mans winner Derek Bell, who is here this weekend among the cadre of famous Porsche drivers. Hopefully we'll be hearing from some of them today, here on the final day of Porsche Rennsport Reunion VI. Well, I'll say once again, Al Tiley did a wonderful job of controlling that car. I was watching his left front wheel as he pulled it off the track, and there was no panic in there. The wheel wasn't swerving back and forth as he tried to take that three-wheeler off into the beach. He did a great job. While we're under caution, we'll take a break and return with more of Porsche Rennsport Reunion VI.
The Ultimate driving machines really do deserve the ultimate driving weekend.
This race is underway.
But a few hundred meters away from the checkered flag.
Wow! Oh no, a race leader!
This is so exciting.
Here we go. And there's a checkered flag! Oh yeah, he did the full ascot deal. Yeah, that's great. Welcome back, Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6 here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. Back up to speed as we've gotten back to green here after we had a wild incident with Tilly losing the right front wheel.
So right now, Rob Todd is out front in his 2018 Porsche GT3 Cup car, being closely pursued by a Porsche-powered ex-IMSA prototype.
They might have wanted that prototype to start at the tail end of the field, Bob, because I think it's just a matter of time here as he looks on the outside of 5, which is not usually we're going to make that pass, but he cuts to the inside, which give him a great run as they head to 6.
Pierce Marshall.
Oh, he couldn't get it.
No. Another beautiful day here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. No sign of the marine layer, the traditional fog that we're used to here just off Monterey Bay. Big crowd on hand. We could go on and on about the cars as we have all weekend, and we'll do that as we wrap up our coverage here on the final day. Day 4 of Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6.
I thought for sure by now Marshall would have found a way by.
You think on the straight?
Yeah, he should have the advantage for sure.
Too much downforce. It's all drag.
You know, and that's funny you bring that up, because in talking to Bruce Canepa about running the 917 around here, and he won the class event for that yesterday, well, actually finished second.
Yeah, I don't think he won yesterday.
Yeah, no.
The RS one.
Gunnar Jeanette was way up.
That's right. But anyway, he said this is not a track that's really designed for the 917, and the 917 running on here is very challenging to do. Really meant for stretching its legs out on the Mulsanne.
Which is exactly why Porsche, in their wisdom, came up with the 908-3, because the 917s couldn't handle the Targa Florio. Probably weren't at their best at the Nürburgring Nordschleife either. So
you could allegedly smoke a cigarette down the straight while you were hitting top speed in that car because it was so long.
Oh.
Yeah. Full minute, right?
Yeah.
At max speed.
Yeah, you look at some of the more contemporary footage. I remember Davy Jones, the only American. No, I shouldn't say that, but one of the Americans among Tom Walkinshaw's Jaguars at Le Mans. I saw some onboard footage of him going down the Mulsanne and got awful speed before they put the chicanes in. And one of the reasons the Walkinshaw boys liked Davey was because he was brave. And I would have to say so. 235, 240 miles an hour.
Over and over and over again.
Over and over again. And in the dark. And in the rain, if it should do so. And in a battle with another car.
And we've got a pretty good battle going here, Justin.
Well, you know, as I watched these guys out on track, I was reflecting on my pretty dismal day yesterday, performance on track. But when you were talking about Le Mans, you know, Dad mentioned it in that interview we did earlier in the weekend. You actually were able in the old days to relax on the Mulsanne straight. As you said, I mean, maybe Winkelhock used to smoke a cigarette, but the rest of those guys are pretty fit. But as you go down there, you'd used to sort of relax your hands, and anything above 200 miles an hour, there's a sort of harmonizing of the car. And definitely for me in the 962 that we ran in 1992, that's sort of the last year that car really had any life. And at 226 miles an hour, you'd literally start to breathe and enjoy it, unless it was raining, and then I had to look out of the left-hand window to follow the grass verge just to see if I was still going in a straight line. So I remember I came in and Dad said, "How was it?" And I was just like, "That was bloody brilliant." And he said, "You are just stupid, son. You're stupid."
But what an experience.
Yeah, great experience.
And we should point out, Justin has long experience at Le Mans in its many forms and many cars, and he has the trophies to prove his success. And running with his dad, what a great moment that must have been.
Got a little bit of traffic brewing up here for our top two leaders, Todd in the 911 and Marshall in the prototype. Marshall keeps looking at the outside going into turn 5, which I really don't remember anybody making a pass on the outside at 5 as they sweep through 4. Let's see if he sets that up.
We've got traffic to deal with, so
he's getting antsier though.
Yep, here he goes.
More aggressive. There he goes.
Well,
can he? No.
There again. Outside of 5.
Todd had the inside line, and that's the traffic I'm talking about.
Boy, you know, you would think, pass him, that he has such an opportunity with the power to just
maybe it's not dialed in. Yeah, maybe it's not dialed in properly.
Maybe he just can't get off of 11 right.
And we should point out, too, I mean, this is vintage racing, despite the relative youth of the cars we're watching battle for the lead. And these drivers have to be extra careful because they're racing, presumably, their treasured Porsche, and they know that the driver next to them is doing the same. Nobody wants to bend anybody's race car this weekend.
Darrell Troster in the 41 is holding on to 7th place. He's got a bunch of guys chasing him in his 2003 996 Cup car. It was a Porsche Factory 996 Cup car delivered in 03, and it ran the Pirelli Cup Series championship back in 2014 and won the title.
Well, speaking of the value of these cars, word is that the 917 that Canepa was driving yesterday blew an oil line. So that explains the smoke.
Fitting.
The blue smoke.
Oh, was it fitting?
Yeah, it was dripping.
Carries 23 quarts of oil, only lost 6.
Wow. That's nice redundancy right there.
And the way he found out the thing was even leaking, he had no idea it was smoking. A little bit of hot oil on the back of his neck, and he was like, hey, wait a minute, that ain't right.
That'll wake you up.
Somebody put in some hours to make sure that car could run today, I'm sure.
Can you imagine the stress of driving that thing, wondering if the engine is melting down as you keep lapping?
Here's Rene Robichaud in his 2016 Porsche GT4 CS. I say his. Could be a female.
You know, the GT4 street car is, boy, that is a hot rod car right there.
It's really tight. It's a really fun car to drive.
And it looks like the kind of thing that could really put some pressure on a 911 owner if you're not careful.
Oh, yeah. It's faster than a base 911. They finally broke that invisible barrier and let the cars be what they want to be, which is nice.
Correctly, Rene Robichaud won a Cup championship recently in a car like that one, perhaps that car. Car number 90 in the field is Nicole Robichaud, and I'm going to assume she is a female and she's related to Rene.
Our battle at the front continuing. 11 laps in on this one.
Well, I think Marshall is just being patient because, you know, strategic.
Yeah, patient.
We'll see. I could be wrong, but yeah.
But they've just drawn away from the number 84 of Jesse Menser.
Well, they're lapping a good 2 seconds quicker than the third place car.
Anybody make the start? No, we had 2 DNS, did not start. So the field of 50 was out there circulating. It's a lot of race cars around a basically 2.25 mile racetrack.
It's interesting to see the size of the diffuser on a prototype, which reminds you of the fact that the GT1, at least word is that the engine was in the middle not for weight balance, but really to enable a massive diffuser to give it the aero that it needs, and that's the advantage.
Porsche's Cup Series of 911 race cars are
Here we go.
the most
There's
numerous.
a braking move.
Yep.
And we have
Lead
a
change.
Well, you can't get off the corner.
Angry.
Getting a draft.
That prototype really struggles up off of 11s for some reason.
Lapping at just about a minute and a half per lap. I'm guessing there may be 2 laps left in the race, so it was a well-timed pass. Although, once again, traffic ahead. I would say more Porsche Cup Series cars for the single-make series, of which there are many around the world, more numerous than any other race car ever built. Here's another look. They come through turn 10, approaching the braking area for 11. Todd stays wide. Marshall slips underneath to take the lead.
You know, the only car out there, Bob, that I can think of that would be even close to how many 911 Cup cars have been raced would be the Miata, or the MX-5 as it's known now. You know, that has had a single make style. Oh, one around here. Is that the 800? Yeah, I think it is.
I think that's 300.
300.
That's Rick Polk from Eden Prairie, Minnesota, in a 73 Porsche 911. Right of your screen. Let's see what happened. Oh, too much curb.
That's right Right into the number 2 there.
Jeff Isringhausen from Springfield, Illinois, and a 2012 Cayman R. Nobody looks too much the worse for wear.
That'll get a conversation in the paddock post-race.
Okay, unofficially, we're on the last lap. Pierce Marshall able to draw away from Todd. Now this could get interesting as they climb the Bobby Rahal straightaway.
And boy, you sure hope the guys are looking in the mirror, right?
Yes,
as you go inside at 6 here.
Todd has got a clear lane to approach unless somebody gets in his way.
Best line of the weekend was in the tractor race when they went all Zanardi down through the corkscrew.
That and the safari car, that was great too.
Yeah. Looking for dirt. Todd able to get back to his rival. I think it's going to be too late. To the line, checkered flags wave. Congratulations to Pierce Marshall. Taking, whoops.
Oh, no.
Not without some last lap fireworks.
That's coming off
416. Yeah, that's 4. Alex Steele.
That's right here in front of us off of turn 4.
Yeah. I've seen that before. That may be the oldest car in the field. 1967 Porsche 911.
With modern bodywork.
Yeah.
Modernish.
A lot of room to modernize since 1967.
Way off of the entrance.
Yeah, this is a deceiving corner. Turn 4 here at WeatherTech Raceway. It's really easy to get too much brake or too much throttle and find yourself pirouetting. So nice job for Pierce Marshall, who takes the first victory of the day here on day 4 of the Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6. Back with more in a moment.
I love it. I love it.
This thing is pretty fun to drive.
This is so exciting.
Look. That's the secret. Always look where you're going.
Coverage of Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6 is brought to you by Pirelli. Power is nothing without control. By Haggerty Insurance, for people who love cars. And by Motor Trend. Welcome back to Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6 at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. No, your eyes do not deceive you. Those are tractors. Honest to goodness, diesel Porsche tractors built under license. If you were with us the last couple of days of Rennsport Reunion, we told you all about Porsche's history building tractors. And who better as a guest racing driver, adding to his glittering resume that includes the 24 Hours of Le Mans, Daytona, Sebring. Justin Bell is aboard a Porsche tractor.
Well, I don't know what I'm doing here, guys. I got asked to drive this tractor. How could I not? I felt my career needed a little bit of a resurgence, a bit of a boost. So I got asked to do it. Kevin Jeanette, Gunner Racing, they have prepared me the pink
farm. You can ask her a thing or two about riding a tractor.
And I need a good farm girl with me.
You need a guider,
She's
right?
the one.
You need
But listen,
somebody to
this thing
tell
will
you
hit
what
8 miles an hour, so I've got to really back it up. But talk about a family. I can't get away from the rest of my family. That's my brother Sebastian on the world's largest tractor. Hey, listen, will you drive it for me? I'm a little nervous.
No way.
Yeah, exactly. I know you would.
Is it the rally cars that need a side person? Can I be your...
I'm very nervous, but you know what's really good is that I've never seen Anne so attracted to me as she is right now. It's the Iowa roots. But let me give you a rundown of the tractor. Come here. On the front, I have the wing, one of the wings from a 962. That's on the front. On the back, I have a ring. Oh yeah, I've got to get into position. I've got to go into this Le Mans Star, guys. And on the back, look here, that is the wing of a GT1. This is worth 5 times more than the tractor. All right.
Take care of business.
Well, yeah, 50.
I guess the open question is, will he go faster on that tractor than he did in that Le Mans Kremer Porsche yesterday?
Oh, yes.
Now, Porsche has a long history with tractors, believe it or not.
He's looking at him. He's already cheating on the grid here.
Well,
he
got
didn't
that.
even back it all in.
He's got that trailer at the back with the little piglets on it. So, but Porsche designed tractors as early as 1939, gas-powered tractors. Then World War II intervened.
And Justin, you know, you got to do this Le Mans start. What kind of shoes you got on there?
My boots. You know me. I'm always in my boots. I actually don't. I think I probably am so disrespecting my family brand right now. But remember, Derek Bell started life as a farmer. Just saying.
Sounds like those tractors are running. I think yesterday they had to start them. And they're all diesels, all air-cooled, 1, 2, and 3 cylinder tractors.
And there's 4 different models on it. The standard,
4 different
and the
levels:
junior,
standard, super, and master. Anywhere from 18 to 55 horsepower.
Look at this. Look at the drivers. Earl Bamber. This is crazy, guys.
Earl Bamber, Jeroen Bleekemolen. That's Bamber in the yellow helmet.
Jeff
Bleekemolen in the gray suit.
Jeff Swartz is in there.
Jeff Swartz, right. Who's raced every kind of Porsche. Do us proud, Justin.
Oh, he laid out of the gate.
He lost the foot race. Let's see what he can do on the track.
Struggled there. And he's away.
Wow. Now this is aggressive.
All right, Justin, call it for us.
No, he's too busy waving to his fan.
All right, we've lost the mic on him now.
Now, yesterday's race was won by Eric Edenholm from Scottsdale, Arizona, who was wearing another distinctive set of, I was going to say leathers, a driver's suit.
Now, what we want to keep an eye on with Justin is down at the Andretti hairpin. You know, you could get over to the pit exit there is on the inside at Andretti and wraps all the way around, and he's headed that way. Look at him.
I don't know about this. I think Eric Edenholm is in this race. He's further forward. He's got the unpainted helmet with the hat on it. And there's Earl Bamber showing everybody the way. Well, I guess if everybody else is going to cheat, I will too.
John Oates of the famous Rockman Hall & Oates drove the Pink Pig yesterday, Pink Pig tractor. Did a fine job. I would say right now that Justin's tagging the tail.
Everybody heading off track, which for Earl Bamber is not a big deal because he was doing it yesterday in a full-on Porsche 911 Paris-Dakar rally raid car, for which he was called before the stewards for tearing up the runoff areas of the track.
I like the farmer hats
on the helmets.
Mounted to the top of the helmets. Oh, Justin's going way off. Oh, boy.
He doesn't need piglets. He needs a plow.
This probably doesn't go right through the sign knowing him. Well, the track crew's not going to be real excited about this, are they? They're going to go back and sweep it.
Or whoever has to go out there on the marbles when the next race in proper race cars comes along.
Well, race leaders already coming underneath the Michelin bridge on the way between 3 and 4.
See, these guys are not factory drivers for nothing. Never better watch where he's going.
Oh, he's taking pictures. He's got his phone. Earl is grabbing Instagram and Twitter shots.
They'll be going by our position shortly or longly, depending on how you look at it. Now you see, I think that's Eric Eatonholm. The red shirt and cowboy hat. Well, it looks like he's not going to remain undefeated on the weekend because Earl Bamber is tearing the place up.
Well, the race leader is going past our broadcast position right now. And this is going to be one victory that Earl Bamber, a factory Porsche driver, will have great bragging rights over. Are they lining up for a team photo?
Yeah. Could be a Le Mans-style echelon finish. I mentioned Bamber angering the stewards by tearing up the track verge. He actually brought the turf crew or the track crew in to the Porsche garages to give them an up-close look and a discussion of the 919 record car, the tribute car. And then there are pictures somewhere of Earl Bamber with a broom out there by dawn's early light this morning, sweeping up some of the debris he dragged onto the racetrack. So good on him. And now he's going to win one of the feature races of the weekend. Justin giving it a little body English. Anybody hum the theme song to the Beverly Hillbillies?
Well, it was one of the most anticipated moments of the weekend when everybody heard that they were going to be doing the tractor races. And the 2 times that they've done it has been a riot and a great time.
It's been a little bit of Porsche history you can't ignore. Some of these tractors in pristine condition, and there are some beauties out there, will bring solid 5 figures at auction. There are people who collect these things.
And I heard of guys who, once they heard they were going to do this, ran out and bought some just so they could participate in this event. Of course, nobody bought a standard or a junior. They all went for the master, right?
Right. Some of them are pristine, reconditioned, restored as it were, and others, as you see, they have their basic provenance.
Just like the cars, Bob, looks like they're doing the family photo.
Yep. Certain patina to those rusty ones. Call it the preservation class. Okay, the tractor race is over. The barn raising is next.
That's right.
Listen, I can hear the crowd out there. The fans are appreciating this.
Oh, everybody's had fun with it. It's definitely been one of the top topics of conversation in the paddock area.
I wonder who the young lady in the white helmet is.
Yeah, she ran good. She was up near the front most of the time.
I only bring it up because you told me you ran into a certain Porsche ambassador this weekend.
Yes.
By the name of?
Maria Sharapova.
That's right.
Guys, we made it. We made it.
Well, at least you're consistent, Justin, old buddy. You finished right there second from last like you did yesterday.
I'm consistent in mediocrity is what you're trying to tell me. But the flying pig did not let me down. But unfortunately, I discovered the secret sauce. I was flat out in 5th. But when I pulled the handbrake, the fixed power brake, suddenly I got like another horsepower or something. And it just took off. Unfortunately, it was a bit late for my race. Story of my life. But what an amazing thing if you think about it. These tractors are as old as any of the cars out here. And literally, Cooper McNeil and David went and bought one just to do this race. And it literally came off a farm somewhere. So, and Dr. Porsche said to me last night, I have 6 of these things. So the tractor is not too far from Porsche's mind at any time. Wow, that was a buzz. I want one now, but the main thing is I looked after the kids, guys. Look at the piglets. They made it. They survived it.
Well, Justin, I hate to break the news to you, but there has been a protest filed. Apparently the track crew says you tore up the Andretti hairpin so badly that they want you in front of the stewards, and there will be consequences.
Pigs will fly before I go there.
Well, one thing is for sure, no pig's going to fly with you driving.
I'm funny, Ralph.
Hang on to those overalls. They may come in handy at the disco some night.
Oh, no, I'm taking these home. These are mine. All right, and by the way, they're the new booth outfit for next Rennsport. So.
Is that it? Okay.
Oh,
yeah.
Where do we get ours?
Yeah, exactly. All right, Farmer Bell's off.
Giddy up.
Well done. Congratulations to Earl Bamber, who has seen both the highest of highs and the lowest of lows this weekend. And we're not done yet. Stay with us.
The ultimate driving machines really do deserve the ultimate driving weekend.
This race is underway. But a few hundred meters away from the checkered flag.
Wow. Oh, no, a race leader.
This is just so exciting.
Here we go. And there's a checkered flag.
Isn't it time you connected to something greater? Sometimes the best way to connect is to disconnect. This moment of escape was brought to you by Haggerty, for people who love cars.
It has been an incredible weekend here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, Porsche Rennsport Reunion VI. Those are some of the sights and sounds and amazing pieces that have been a part of this weekend here.
You know, Ralph, watching those pictures of those cars going around the track, I mean, we all recognize as car-loving Americans how much our cars mean to us. For someone like Justin Bell, who we just saw in the tractor race, I mean, he's been a member of the Porsche family since birth due to the exploits of his father, Derek. But, you know, my professional career has been involved with Porsche for 30-odd years, and you've been doing this a long time as well. And if you're like me, you're looking at those cars thinking, yeah, that one. I remember watching that car in its glory days. The creepy crawly Porsche March, the 935s, and then the 962s, and then the World Endurance cars up to and including the 919 and the 919 Tribute car that has been out doing laps here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. It's like watching your life pass before your eyes.
It sure is, and I've been fortunate enough not to just watch the Porsches race, but I've had a chance to own one, and it's easy to get caught up in the passion of Porsche, and once you're in, it's hard to get it out because it is such a remarkable brand name and truly one of the world's most iconic automobile manufacturers.
Yeah.
Well, and this weekend isn't just about the cars, but it's about the people as well. And earlier in the weekend, Bob had a chance to sit down with one of the top designers, Norbert Singer.
Here in the Porsche Heritage Center, I'm with a man who was right at the heart of the action as Porsche came to fame on the racetracks of the United States and the world, Norbert Singer, who was Director of Design and Operations for Porsche in the 90s. Norbert, what does it mean to you to come here and see all of these fabulous race cars arrayed here at WeatherTech Raceway?
Well, for me, it's really a great situation to see all these, let's call it babies, where I was involved, standing here around and even driving there. It's fantastic. I think it's one of the greatest Porsche show I ever saw.
Take us through your career, when you began with Porsche and the cars that you were involved with early on.
Well, I started first working on the 917, and then I got my own project, which was the Carrera RSR in '73, which my first visit in America was with Peter Gregg and Hurley Haywood. And the car is over there, and they won overall the Daytona 24, which was quite great, the biggest thing at the beginning. So,
perhaps the seminal Porsche race car that fans know are the 956, 962 series, like the car we're looking at right now. Talk about the development of that car.
Well, this 956, 962, the development was done in 9 months, and we started really with a clean sheet of white paper, making a chassis. We never made a monocoque before. We never had any ground effects ideas, because in Formula One ground effect was already working. But making the ground effects usable on a sports car is a completely different story. So we did also this and all together in 9 months. We were lucky, we were successful, and at the end, it was, till now, I think, the most successful race car ever.
When you came to the United States, you found yourself working with Al Holbert, a champion race driver who became the director of racing here for Porsche Motorsport in North America. Al is being honored this weekend on the 30th anniversary of his passing. What are your memories of Al Holbert?
Well, it was a very good race driver, a very good test driver. And I met him at first at Le Mans, and I met him in the 924 project at Le Mans as well. I saw him here also in America. So, and he was very successful in the 962 over here, so it was fantastic. And I think he was the right guy at that situation for Porsche Motorsport in America.
Certainly, Rennsport Reunion is about Porsche's past, but also about its future. Hybridization, electrification of the automobile. What are your thoughts on where we are now and where motorsport is going?
Well, I think motorsport like this will stay for the next years for sure. I cannot imagine that you can run an electric car for 24 hours. Fast recharging is one thing, but you cannot make a pit stop for half an hour to recharge the car. Changing batteries in that time is crazy. So I think motorsport will be with combustion engine quite a while. hybrid, this is another story. We have it already in the LMP1, that's good. Or maybe what we can get, hydrogen could be a solution. Or what sometimes is discussed, especially in Germany, in America, I don't know, this a special fuel with less emission and about the same energy per kilo. I think all these combinations could be somehow in the future, but I think we get a decision in the next 5 or 10 years, not today.
Always the engineer. It's a privilege to talk with you, Norbert. Thank you very much.
Bob, sadly today is the anniversary of the passing of Al Holbert.
That's right. He was killed in the crash of a private plane he was flying from a race in Columbus, Ohio. He wanted to go home to watch his son Todd play football in Warrington, Pennsylvania. Todd is here this weekend, carrying on the family name. Al Holbert's father, Bob Holbert, was a very distinguished racing driver here in the United States and a dealer in Porsche products. Al was a part of so many important programs for Porsche here in the United States, including the sports cars, of course, with which he won a bunch of championships, co-driving with Derek Bell, in bringing up young drivers into the Porsche tradition, the IndyCar program, and so much more. And his loss was a tremendous loss to all of motorsports. I remember Al Holbert well. He worked hand in glove with Bob Carlson, the late director of Porsche PR here in the United States. Bob Carlson was the creator of the Porsche Rennsport Reunion. And I remember Bob, after Al's passing, presenting the Al Holbert Trophy to an amateur driver at the SCCA runoffs. And Bob got choked up talking about Al, a close friend, a terrific driver, a great engineer, great businessman, great innovator, and just a great all-around motorsports personality. Both of them are being missed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. True gentlemen, no doubt about it. And great racers, both of them. Well, obviously, this is a weekend all about Porsche, and there's so many variations and models to think of. Bob and I have been sitting here watching cars go by. Oh, you forgot about that one. Well, let's take you back through some of the history of Porsche's iconic vehicles.
Wow. That was produced by Porsche Motorsports North America. Normally we would put music on a piece like that. That's exactly what they did. They let the engine note from those classic Porsche race cars just play along. I'm sure every Porsche fan, including me, wants a copy of that video. You know, Ralph, I was thinking that interview we heard a few moments ago with Norbert Singer, he and I were chatting off camera, and he said, you know, what people fail to realize is that we were a very small company at Porsche, and our development in the motorsports division, the development department for R&D and race car construction, was even smaller. We were basically a handful of people, and yet you look at what their handiwork produced over so many years, and it really is truly remarkable, all part of the Porsche legend.
Well, and so much of it came from the help they got from their teams. Holbert Racing and Brune and Chupin and all these great legendary names.
Yost and Kremer.
Exactly. Penske. They all did so much tremendous development work for them. And then when you put drivers behind the wheel with last names like Foyt, Andretti, Ix, Bell, and so forth and so on, your development's going to go up pretty quick.
No question about it.
Incredible wheelmen.
Time for us to go racing again. Our second race of the day. This is Group 4, the Weissach Cup, for some of the high-end Porsche models based on the 911, the RSR, the 935 K3, and so on and so on. Before we take the green flag, though, let's get down to our buddy Justin Bell.
Be still my beating heart. Basically, that was an adrenaline rush. I had to change out of the pink suit. It's already on eBay, just in case you want to. It isn't, but I was offered money for it on the way out. No one's quite seen those before. And of course, everybody getting ready for this race is a couple of the drivers. I believe Cooper just ran across, Gunnar just ran across. So we're going to see some guys that, can you imagine going from 8 miles an hour on a tractor to these monsters out here? But definitely a lot of anticipation. I got to tell you guys, day 3 here, Sunday. There's been a lot of pomp and ceremony this morning. A lot of, seeing that 919 drive around really got people's adrenaline going. So I think everyone's a lot of expectation for this race. I'm going to walk along, try and find some of the famous people that are behind the scenes, but the action's about to start on track.
And you know, Justin, we're all kind of the same generation where for many of us, I think the 935 is the car that really kind of got us all hooked on Porsche race cars to begin with. Would you agree?
I totally agree, but it also started the formidable folklore, and it wasn't folklore because it really was about those rear-engine Porsches being, very difficult to drive in that raw, very organic, very visceral state. It's very linear. There's no electronics to help you. That power comes in, and that turbo, basically, my dad sort of told me it was like you got to be careful because when it hits you, if you're not ready for it, it will spin you around. And the whistle of the turbos, listen at some point during this race, guys, to the sound of those turbos spooling up. It's a sound that we don't hear anymore in its raw sense, and it's really bringing back a lot of emotions. Spoke with Jochen Mass about that, and he said it's outrageous to hear that. So listen to it as they back off, shift up and down the gears.
Yeah, you get that chirping from the wastegate, maybe a puff of flame as unburned fuel gets into the exhaust. It's all a part of the romance of world-class racing.
There was really nothing that looked like a 935, Bob. It was such a otherworldly designed car. As we get ready to go now, here we go with Group 4, the Weissach Cup.
Detect a little of that turbo wastegate sound. Taking off in the lead, I believe, was the gunner that Justin referred to, Gunnar Jeanette. Cooper was Cooper McNeil, both from racing families.
The 17 you see there was the white machine, Stephen Lawrence, out of Alamo, California, 1977 Porsche 934.5. Car was owned and raced by Ludwig Heimrath. Remember, he used to compete with the car in the Trans Am Championship.
Son Ludwig Heimrath Jr. also drove Porsches in competition. Another big field scheduled to be 46 strong. We'll see how many actually answered the bell.
There's about 3 different iterations of the Interscope Racing Porsches of the day. 0, 00, and then one I believe is number 68 or 88. I haven't had. There it is. Is that 88?
That's 58. We're talking about the one ahead of it. There's a couple of Coca-Cola sponsored 935s, nose to tail.
Patrick Long is in one of is in the number 5 car.
Right, the one on the left.
The Fab car 935. The last and the fastest of the 935s, built by Bob Aiken and Dave Klein at Fab car. Finished second in the 83 Daytona finale that year. So this car here, the other night I was at a local restaurant of fame to racers around here known as the Baja Cantina. And as I was leaving the paddock here, I saw them loading this car up on a rollback, and I thought, oh man, what a shame, something must be wrong with it. They're taking it to a nearby shop to get worked on. And by the time I got over to the restaurant on the other side of the hills over here, sure enough, what comes driving into the parking lot, not on the back of the rollback, but they had loaded it down the street, fired it up, and literally drove it in to the Baja Cantina parking lot. That car right there.
Yeah, actually,
935.
Dave
cool.
of Fab Car fame pronounces his name Clem. He used to work. He had his shops in my neck of the woods in Atlanta, Georgia. Dave now works for the Revs Institute in Naples, Florida. One of the truly astonishing collections, not only of racing cars, but of memorabilia, documentation, and research materials. It's not a public museum, but it's available for legitimate research. And Dave works there, helping to keep their incredible collection in running shape because they get exercise. And we have a move for the lead as Patrick Long goes storming past in that 935, taking over from Gunnar Jeanette.
Yeah, Gunnar's car is a 1977 934.5. Sold new to Clifford Kearns.
There's a bit of that burst of unburnt fuel in the exhaust.
Gunnar's car is the 10th and final 934.5 produced. Campaigned with limited success in Trans Am and IMSA competition. Crashed heavily at Daytona 1978 and was rebuilt all around a new tub.
And not all of Porsche's greatest racing machines have been right out of the factory, as you pointed out.
Mark Hotchkiss is driving the 77, 1973 911 Carrera RSR. It was originally delivered to Bob Harmon and campaigned in its original form for a short period. Ran in GTO and GTU categories in IMSA and also in Le Mans 24 Hours. John Hotchkiss, Bob Kirby, Dennis Ossie all drove the car. Hotchkiss family, of course, been a part of IMSA racing and sports car racing for years, campaigning 962s as well as the 911s. There's one of those Interscope cars, the 68. Lloyd Hawkins driving that one. It's a 1979 935. Ran at Le Mans in 1979 and 1980. It's part of the Vasek Pollock collection out of Southern California. Legendary Porsche dealer.
Could become a nose-to-tail battle. Mark Hotchkiss in the 77, driving the family vintage Porsche. That's a picture in time. The Win-sponsored 934.5 against the full-on 935 in Interscope colors. Ted Field founded the Interscope entertainment business, actually. It was a record and film producing company. Interscope Records still exists, I believe. In fact, the entire business lineup may, for all I know.
Well, problems for the 80 going around.
William Kincaid out of Palo Alto, California, 76 Porsche 934. Has raced in all 3 of the world's great endurance classics, Le Mans, Daytona, and Sebring.
It's the wall. He was getting close to it there as he was trying to back out of the way. Here's another Interscope car going up the hill. There goes the 00, and I think the 63. There's an 83. Not 63. back behind it. Kevin Estre driving 75 911 RSR. Originally in the Vasek-Pollock stable. Milt Minter ran the car. Campaigned in IMSA and Trans Am racing, including 24 hours at Daytona, 12 hours at Sebring, and right here at Laguna Seca.
We're getting an indication of a yellow. Oh, it's a full course yellow. I was going to say a local yellow. Nobody appeared to be slowing down much.
I think that's for our yellow car that's backed up along the wall.
For the 80. Well, that's a pity. Yep, there it is. You see Puerto Rico on the sun visor. That car has competed. The number 80 on the hood is because it's competed in 80 international events around the world, including South America and the Caribbean, where it was driven by some of the better-known drivers from that part of the world. Mandy Gonzalez, Kikos Fonseca, and Diego Febles. Luis Mendez was a regular in the old Camel GT series, and a whole lot more.
You know, a lot of these cars, Bob, when they got done being used as race cars, had interesting lives after that. This car right here that we were talking about that Kevin Estre is driving, when it got done being raced, the Vasek-Pollock people leased it to IMSA and Goodyear, and they used it as a pace car. Now it's back in its proper Interscope racing livery, back in competition. Let's go down to the paddock and Justin once again.
Well, Sebastian was in it. I was talking earlier about the real men that drove 935 Porsches in period. Well, John Fitzpatrick, long-term Bell family friend, and obviously I grew up watching John. We're watching these 935s out there now, and all these years later, they're still fearsome machines, aren't they?
They're awesome. I mean, with full boost, 750 horsepower, you know, bags of torque, absolutely unbelievable. I mean, for me, they were the greatest race cars ever, because you always had that little bit too much power. You know, you just had to try and control it.
And what was it like, obviously, in that era with no electronics? I mean, there was no traction control, but it was all you knew, wasn't it? So it was the world you lived in at the time.
Well, it was. I mean, we didn't know about all the electronics in those days, but it was. I think the drivers had a lot more input. You know, it was more down to feeling what the car was doing, telling the guys what you wanted, a little bit of sway bar, a bit better shock absorbers, and I think it was more fun. I think they've taken a lot of the interesting stuff out of it.
But you mean to tell me, when you saw that multi-million-dollar 919 going around there on a hot, sticky set of Michelins, you don't think that was probably a little bit of fun?
I think that probably was a bit of fun. That would have been far too quick for me, I'm sure. But no, the development's unbelievable, Justin. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. I am jealous. I'd love to be out there with the guys with all these new machines, but, you know, time tells, doesn't it?
Well, you did have the chance to drive 935s in period and 956s and 962s. So no one in this paddock, none of these gentlemen will feel too sorry for you, John.
Thank you very much, Justin.
John Fitzpatrick. Boy, he has a new book out, and it's definitely worth a read. I mean, he had a very colorful career as a privateer racer. In fact, when I started working with David Hobbs, my old TV colleague of a quarter of a century, who was writing his own book, which he eventually finished with our buddy Andrew Marriott, I called John Fitzpatrick to get some stories, because he and David drove together, and he said, well, I really can't tell you too much because I'm writing a book of my own, so I don't want to give anything away. I thought, yeah, thanks a lot.
I saw John at Goodwood last year, and he had just gotten the books done, and he gave me a copy, and it is fantastic. Yeah, it is a really treasure to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and he has a very interesting story. I won't give anything away, but it's worth a read.
Many of his cars are here. Many of the cars that he drove.
Yeah, his sponsor, J. David, which is a story in itself.
Yep. I love the Jägermeister 935 that John drove that's here as well. That is a stunning car in the bright sunlight here on the Monterey Peninsula. And we started off with a bright sunny day, and the clouds have kind of rolled in. No threat of rain whatsoever, but afternoon here in the peninsula, you just never know.
We've seen just about every weather condition imaginable except precipitation. we're not likely to get any of that. But it's been cloudy, it's been cool, it's been fog-bound.
Look at this.
Well, I see no indication that we're no longer under the full course caution, but perhaps we are back to green flag racing. Well, have at it, boys.
So you got a 935 and the 68 right there, and then the 48. Well, that one happens to be a 911 RSR, which is another legendary Porsche design. And of course, again, we get into that storyline of the different tails on the back ends of these Porsches of this design.
Well,
ducktail on the RSR and the big wing on the 935.
Hardly a fair fight. Eric Joyner there in that white number 48 has about 300 horsepower in his 1972 911 RSR. Meanwhile, the car up ahead, the 68 of Lloyd Hawkins, the 79 Porsche 935, has about 740 horsepower. Speaking of which,
yeah, and
Patrick Long.
This baby here is about everything they could throw at it, isn't it? I mean, the body was just taken to the absolute extreme. As I mentioned, this was the last and considered the fastest of them all, the 935s, and that big Moby Dick body, as they called it, and that all came about too because the original one was all done up in white. So when they looked at it, they just looked like a big whale to them, so they nicknamed it Moby Dick.
Oh, man.
And all those 935s of that design became known as a Moby Dick Porsche.
Take a close look at that car, which was clocked at Daytona International Speedway in 1986 at 218 miles per hour.
Can't even conceive of what that must have felt like as a pair of 914s.
Well, you can ask Case Nerup or Jim Mullen. I know Case is here this weekend. He can tell you exactly what it was like.
I got to go for a ride with him at Rennsport 3 or 4 at Daytona. I guess it would have been 3 at Daytona in a GT3 around the high banks there, and what a thrill that was. As we look at the 116, Ernie Spada in his 1970 914-6. It was modified in 72 for SCCA-C production, and then later modified for SCCA GT2 production, and then on to IMSA GTU racing.
There is Jim Hendricks. There's a great racing name. From Chandler, Arizona, in his 1970 Porsche 914-6. So it's a battle of the 914s here. For 18th place, make it. Now picking up another battle. See the number 39 in green. Dennis Singleton from Atherton, California, his 74 Porsche RSR. Another well-exercised 911. 42 races between 74 and 76 alone, racing primarily in Germany. Brought to the United States in 2001. A regular vintage competitor. There's
That's
a familiar
Steve
name.
Schmidt, yeah, in his 935K from 1976. That was Bill and Don Whittington's personal car, which they raced at all the IMSA races in period. It is the real car. Of course, the Whittington brothers owned Road Atlanta, and that's why it has a Road Atlanta name down the front on both sides of the wheel arches.
Boy, those were colorful days, and I'm not talking about the paint.
No.
The Whittington brothers and their tenure at Road Atlanta. The Whittington brothers remain, I believe, the only family that had all 3 brothers on the starting grid for the Indianapolis 500.
Back to the battle between the 914s. Look at the difference in the rear fenders between the two. As the second car was widened out for GTU competition. Flared out on the back end.
I have to say the standard of preparation of all of the cars down here in the paddock is pretty outstanding. Nearly all of them in period livery with equipment to match. Really well taken care of.
Unfortunately, many of them willing to bring them out and exercise them for us.
Exactly. What's the point of having a car like this if you're not going to use it?
Yeah, and a tip of the visor to Porsche for doing the same thing, right? For emptying out the museum, the bringing over many pieces that some of the folks over here in the United States and other parts of the world have never seen actually turn a wheel in anger before.
Yeah, we've made that point time and again this weekend. You've read about them in magazines, you've seen the pictures, maybe saw a little video or film one place or another, but at Porsche Rennsport Reunion, you can actually come out and look into the cockpit, talk to some of the drivers who race them, talk to the owners who own them now, kick some tires, and watch these amazing cars in the flesh, as it were. Because as I've said before, the drivers come and go, but the cars just go on and on.
Talked with the guys down at Bruce Canepa's group. They were saying that they had folks come by who told them they came all the way from Finland, I believe it was, to Rennsport Reunion 6 because they just wanted to see the 917s run and felt like this was their only opportunity to do so.
Yep. You not only see the 917s, you get the 919s. The big 935s, as you mentioned.
Speaking of the 935, still out in front in one is Patrick Long. And you know, Patrick is he's a great guy. He's a heck of a racer, obviously. But he's a real historian and has a deep passion for all things motorsport, certainly for Porsche, as he is one of the great Porsche factory drivers, and he takes his opportunity to participate in things like this very seriously. Not just from behind the wheel, but he wants the experience to be all the way through and through, not just for himself, but for the fans. So since he knew he was going to be driving Bob Aiken's 935, he called Bob's son Bobby Aiken up and figured out how to get a hold of a suit so that he could get behind the wheel and replicate the experience for the fan all the way through. So that when they looked at the car and saw it go by, not that it just looked like the car they remembered, but it was also the driver they remembered.
Yeah, Patrick's had quite a career. He was actually, as a very young man, he was a part of one of the old Red Bull drivers' searches, where a bunch of young drivers were brought together with the promise that if they joined the Red Bull program, they'd be assisted en route to Formula One. Well, Patrick was one of the drivers who was eliminated during the competition, but Porsche representatives were nearby watching to see everyone at work and doing a little talent judging of their own. And when Patrick walked away from Red Bull, he walked right into the arms of Porsche. He's been there ever since, and here he is, America's only Porsche factory driver.
And when we all grow up, we want to be Patrick Long.
Oh, my goodness.
You know, the 935, Bob, is one of those cars, you see pictures of it, you see it on camera, you're watching video of it, but when you see it in person, it just stops you in your tracks, and you have to walk around it slowly and look at it from so many different angles, because the views from the different parts of the car are so radical, from the nose to the tail, down the sides. It is really a remarkable race car. No other design like it.
Patrick coined one of my favorite expressions when it comes to race driving, or high performance driving, let's call it. Fast eyes, slow hands.
How true that is.
Well, going back, is this still the battle for 18th? I believe it is. Spada versus Hendricks. A pair of 914s. Boy, these two guys haven't been any further apart than that since we started. So while that continues, let's see what else we can find. Car number 21 in blue, Jim Bozaglu. I'm sure I'm not pronouncing that properly, and I apologize. Bozaglu, 1973 Porsche 911 RSR.
Yeah, they're fighting over 14th position. I believe that's Tom Hedges behind him, the 1978 930, which was driven by Milt Minter in IMSA competition from 1991 through 94. And then ran a lot of West Coast races as well.
Boy, look at those fat tires on the back of the 21 and the smaller ones on the front. I can't believe the car doesn't push like crazy. But doing what it was designed to do. Of course, remember, these are Porsches. The engine is way back in the back. That changes the handling remarkably.
Not every car that is here is actually being raced this weekend. Quite a few are just on display, and there's a handful of 935s that are just on display here that are amazing to see. We talked about Fitzpatrick's J. David car and the Jägermeister car, and Jerry Seinfeld has a car here with the Martini and Rossi 935s. That's just stunning.
Jerry has a bunch of cars here, including probably the most valuable 9083 anywhere. He's quite the Porsche aficionado. This battle continues. This is for 7th place. White car number 77 is Mark Hotchkiss, being pressed hard by the 63 of Kevin Estra. And Estra, another factory driver, so Mark's giving him all he can handle right now.
Well, and a nice slide off of 11, huh? How about that?
Left a lot of rubber on that corner.
Deep into the braking zone down at the Andretti hairpin. There's a look inside going into 3. A little short.
I will say it must be tough if you're a factory driver for a major manufacturer like Porsche. I mean, you're paid to be at the limit all the time in the car. To come to an event like this, where the level of driver skill and commitment, let's be honest, varies a bit. These are people with families and jobs and homes. They're not professional racing drivers. You've really got to dial it back a little bit.
Here's a battle for second, and a pretty darn good one, too. Perfetti is in the 0 car, the old Interscope car, and Rodella in the other Coca-Cola 935, number 85. And that car ran at Sebring in Miami in 1985. It's a 1984 Porsche 935 with the Coca-Cola logos.
Daniele Perfetti from West Palm Beach, Florida. A car that took a victory at Mosport Park in Canada.
Danny and Gaius, of course, spent many laps behind the wheel of the Interscope machines, both the Porsches and the Indy cars. The Flying Hawaiian, Danny and Gaius.
This should be the last lap, so if you're going to make a pass, you better make it soon.
Patrick Long out front to the corkscrew one more time.
And then Patrick will get out and go drive something else. Because that's his role this weekend. As well as signing autographs and chatting with the fans and his fellow pros.
He's going to make one more pass as he gets to 11. One more trip up through the gearbox. These you've got to row through, and here he comes. Checkered flag waves, and Patrick Long will win the Weissach Cup. And here comes that battle between the 914s. Second place is going to go to Rodella. Perfetti will finish in third, and the 914s were closing in behind them. Spada and Hendricks still fighting over 16th and 17th as Patrick has the door open, saluting the track workers and the fans.
You can see the light dimming as that cloud cover gets thicker and thicker. There's no rain forecast. I'm sure we won't get any today, but it does make it look darker than we've seen this weekend. So the big field makes it through with just one bit of attrition, brief yellow flag, and lots of good racing. So we're going to take a break, get ready for the next race on the menu, so be sure to stay with us here at Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6.
The ultimate driving machines really do deserve the ultimate driving weekend.
And this race is underway. But a few hundred meters away from the checkered flag. Wow! Oh no, a race leader!
This is so exciting.
Here we go. And there's a checkered flag.
Isn't it time you connected to something greater? Sometimes the best way to connect is to disconnect. This moment of escape was brought to you by Hagerty for people who love cars.
Good look down towards the Andretti hairpin as we welcome you back to Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6. Ralph Shaheen, Bob Marsha, and Justin Bell with you. Weissach Cup race is over. Track silent for a moment as we get ready for our next race in the afternoon.
We'd like to thank Bassem Wassef, author, journalist, film producer, who joined us earlier for our first race of the day. He's now off on the enviable assignment of driving a Porsche across the country for an evaluation.
Well, this event on the racetrack is all about the history of Porsche, but there's quite a bit going on here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. Justin, about the future of Porsche and what we can expect to see and maybe in showroom.
What's going on? Well, in the showroom and some people's very lucky garages. Now, this is the 911 Speedster concept that was just revealed on Saturday, and it is absolutely stunning and just really interesting details, throwback tributes, and of course the Speedster is a very emotive car and obviously built to celebrate Porsche's 70th years, 1948 to 2018. But we've just been talking about those extraordinary Porsche 935s out there, and right in the middle of this huge fan festival here is this, and they bought the 935 back, and I bet there was no opposition within the board at Porsche when they said, let's do this car. Start at the front, because everybody knows the classic 935 silhouette, and this is just bigger, wider, and more, I'm not going to use the word stature, but it really does have it. Look at this huge carbon fiber front splitter. All about aero. 935 always was in its own way. It's all carbon fiber plastic all the way across, and it's not ever going to be for road use. They're making 77 of them. 1977 was the year they actually won the championship. But just look at even the refueling nozzle up there. I mean, the refueling vent, just the same as on the race cars. Now, all the louvers, like straight off their GT programs, and these were very functional and popular during the 935 era, and of course they've kind of gone away on a lot of GT cars now, but these are back on this 935. This car will set you back 700,000 or 1,1948 euro. Work that out. It's a lot of money. It's about $800,000. Look in here a little bit. That is the interior of the ultimate track day car. fully FIA spec'd, but without any restraints on homologation. You can see there's a little wooden gear shifter there, the latest in technology. It even has here the FIA escape hatch on the top. Not that you'd want to do it to this car, but for me, as you wrap around to the rear here, it is just extraordinary. This is a wing off one of their development cars. It has LED lights built into the end here, and right at the tail. I mean, it really does bring me back, guys, to some of those big GT1 Porsches that we saw. These are a throwback to some of the tribute classic car 911s of the 70s and 80s. And this car with 700 horsepower, 800,000 euros is something special. And guess what? No surprise. All 77 apparently have been spoken for. Not by me, though. Shock.
Yeah, no, they are all spoken for. And the story goes, Justin, as we've been hearing throughout the paddock, the original thought was to do 70. And then the Porsche, some of the Porsche executives said, you know what, I wouldn't mind one of those too. So they decided to make 77 of them. But they are all gone. Believe it or not, Bob, I talked to one gentleman here this weekend who is in line for one of each of those two cars, the 935 and the Speedster. And the Speedster, of course, is, and this is why Rennsport is such at home here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, because California is a massive market for Porsche. The Speedster, when it was originally designed, was designed for the California market. So coming back here to Rennsport, they had to debut the Speedster concept right here at its home in California.
Absolutely beautiful cars. And sadly spoken for. And once again, our colleague Justin Bell choked on a big dollar number for a fabulous car. I mean, that 935 commemorative is just outstanding.
And that, you know, we talked about the secrets of the weekend. That one really was a well-kept secret. Nobody really knew. We heard there was going to be an unveiling, but it was really well kept that they were doing a 935 again.
Time now for the Group 5 final, the Gamin Cup. These will be 50s era cars. Look at those numbers. Porsche 356s, 356As, a Devon Porsche, an RSK, a 52 Porsche Glockerler. Don't ask me. Just fabulous cars from the earliest era of Porsche racing in the 1950s.
So we had the heyday of technology of its era with the 935, and now this.
Yep. And a lot of these are specials. In other words, the cars were deeply modified, perhaps a different chassis, but all Porsche powered. I mean, just look at that array. Front left, a tiny little race car. I mean, I could put one on each foot, I think. But they are getting after it.
And these guys getting after it pretty quick in the front of the field, too. They're going to go side by side into the Andretti.
3 wide, 4 wide. Gently, ladies and gentlemen.
And every single one of these cars, classic Porsche design, in the fact that they hold true to the Porsche design motto of small and lightweight.
Taking the early lead is the 55 of Cameron Healy from Portland, Oregon, and his 1953 Cooper Pooper. One of the specials that I mentioned, with a whopping 145 horsepower. 58, leading the second group, is Mark Escuch from Mequon, Wisconsin, in a 58 Porsche 356A Speedster. That raced all over the Western Hemisphere, including the old Bahamas Speed Weeks. The list of tracks where that car has appeared is astonishing. Audubon, Barber, Blackhawk, Circuit of the Americas, Gingerman, Heartland Park, Lime Rock, Mid-Ohio, Palm Beach International, Pocono, Road America, Road Atlanta, Roebling Road, Sebring, VIR, Watkins Glen, Daytona, Mont Tremblant, and Summit Point.
Race cars are the only types of vehicles where you don't really want low mileage, right? You want to see it having been around numerous venues and putting in lots of laps. add to the provenance.
Yep. There's Gregory Campbell from Salt Spring Island, British Columbia. In a 55 Porsche Devon Speedster. In contrast to the other car I mentioned, this one raced very sparingly throughout its life.
Healy and the Cooper behind it. Cooper Pooper.
I'm sure there's a colorful story behind that name, but I have no idea what it is. I'd love to know. Lots of 356s.
There's a gaggle of them right there, including the 134 George Balbeck. He's running a 1961 356B Roadster.
That's another car that has seen a lot of different racetracks.
We talked a little bit yesterday about there was 4 different variations of the 356, the pre-A, the A, the B, and the C. Johannes van Overbeek, boy, he spent a lot of time racing Porsches in his day. Just about every major championship around. This car is an RS60 1960 edition. Ran at Le Mans in 1960. Also ran the Targa Florio 1961.
That car raced at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in 1960, believe it or not. Also in the 61 Targa Florio. Then came across here to the United States. Raced in the SCCA Nationals in 1964. And you can be sure those roll bars were likely to have been added later, long after the cars were originally manufactured, but added in the name of safety. There's Johannes.
Well, he's working the wheel, isn't he?
Yeah, well, you get those little skinny tires, less rolling resistance, less weight. You sacrifice grip, but what the heck. Johannes, if I remember correctly, lives in the Bay Area and has ridden his bicycle to events at this racetrack over the years.
Well, you got to get your training in.
Yeah. Spent years racing with Scott Sharp, Ryan Dial. Prototype racing in the IMSA WeatherTech series for the Patron Tequila sponsored team. What else have we out here? Carnival 44, Jeff Weissard from Palm Desert, California, in a 52 Porsche Glocker. The Glocker Special. Walter Glockel was a German auto dealer who obtained one of the first Volkswagen dealerships after the war and made the most of it, advertising his products, as so many dealers and manufacturers have over the decades, by racing them.
Well, he's being chased by Uwe Bingner in a 1959 356A. The car was raced all over Germany.
And that car has tremendous provenance. It was sold to the United States to Max Hoffman, who was Porsche's legendary U.S. distributor. And he had the car raced by Johnny van Neumann, who dealt with Porsches out here on the West Coast for many, many years, racing against the likes of Dan Gurney, the Arcieros, probably Parnelli Jones, and some of the others who raced out here in the California scene. And yet here it is, risking all on the racetrack. Gotta love it.
These guys are running back around 28th, 29th. 54 getting in the mix too, trying to cut up on the inside there. And that...
It's Clint DeWitt from Sacramento, California, in a 55 Porsche Continental Coupe. With a whopping 99 horsepower.
He's making use of all of it right now.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like he's going to complete. Nope, not going to get it done. Getting inside at 4.
I'd say he has a very effective power to weight ratio.
Drag race under the bridge to 5.
Oh.
I'm guessing Clint didn't lift because he kept his foot in it, gave a wave as he carried the momentum around the up. Now he's pointing to the inside.
He's saying, pass me on this side. 76 in white, Robert Kahn from Seal Beach, California, down by the LA area, a 58 Porsche Speedster. Working traffic. Car has been raced according to its bio, if you will, consistently since 1976. No trailer queen, that car. Sky's starting to brighten just a little bit as the sun tries to poke through, and that's good news. Need to take the license plate off. Just drive it home. .48 up ahead is Paul Christensen of Sparks, Nevada, in the Reno area. A 56 356. We've talked about that car during practice. Ralph mentioned barn finds, all the great stories about wonderful cars found in varying degrees of decrepitude. That car was found under a tree in 1976 in a lot in Hayward, California. Its history unknown. Built up to run in autocross, running in PCA and SCCA events. And now this weekend here at WeatherTech Raceway.
Well, we were talking about the speedsters, and you mentioned Max Hoffman. You know, he suggested to the company that a lower cost version of the 356 and a Spartan one at that. Let's get rid of some of the stuff and just leave that open top as the key to it. It would do very well in the United States, especially in that California market, and boy did it ever. It was an instant hit.
Yeah, well, they were probably selling Volkswagen Beetles like crazy, and they thought, well, let's get a sportier version of that, which is basically what you've got here in the 356. And we hear that story over and over again. I mean, Luigi Canetti in New York telling Enzo Ferrari, build cars for America. These people lust after these sporty cars. They don't want to drive the big station wagons and sedans from domestic producers. They want zippy cars. They want performance. They want handling. Especially after World War II, when all the servicemen came home and said, you wouldn't believe the cars you see over there.
Here's our race leader in the number 356.
Gregory Campbell really giving it some stick. Notice this car, the central driving position of the driver. I mean, granted, he doesn't have a whole lot of room to the left or right, but he's not sitting in the traditional left-hand position of USA cars or right-handed position of UK machinery.
You know what's interesting about that car, Bob, is it raced a lot in 58 and 59 with Dave Skilling behind the wheel. Then it sat idle and never saw the racetrack again until 2009.
Now, why can't I come across a car like that somewhere?
Right?
Distinctive home to these very small displacement cars.
A lot of different engine notes here this weekend as you listen to the wide variety of Porsche engines, the air-cooled motors, the turbocharged engines, all the different machinery that is here.
Boy, Gregory's driving that with some verve. Sliding it around, watch his hands, little adjustment. It's a very tricky corner there, turn 4. A lot of folks get off into the dirt. That is a really pretty car.
Continuing to climb up the hill, base camp at turn 6. Now you go for the steep elevation climb all the way to the summit up at the corkscrew. This battle back here with the 52 and the 34 is for 14th. Connor is in the 52. Another Porsche Devon. Arthur Connor from Carpinteria, California, 59. Completed the restoration of this car in 2015. It's been here to Monterey before, having competed in the Rolex Monterey Motorsports Reunion.
And that red car just behind is Charles Christensen of Paso Robles, California. A 59 356 Super D with a bit of provenance. It was driven on a couple of occasions by Roger Ward, the great Indianapolis star.
That's a good name to have on the driver's side.
Yeah. 57 Indy 500 winner Sam Hanks drove the car.
Wow.
It was also driven by a guy named Nick Reynolds, and I love this kind of thing. Nick was probably better known as the lead singer for the Kingston Trio. Very popular folk music group back in the day. Hang down your head, Tom Dooley.
Working their way through traffic. For some of these cars to climb up to the corkscrew takes a little longer.
When you're in a car that small, with your head hanging out there in the Airstream, I bet it's pretty darn exhilarating.
Especially in this part, to run down the hill, because it is a pretty steep drop. And just the gravity alone will pull you down pretty quick, all the way to 11.
It's a steeper drop than it looks, and this corner is quicker than it looks because it has a little bit of a bowl effect. You don't have to get out of it or touch the brakes as much as you think you might. Slowest corner on the track, turn 11. But you got to get it right because you get on to the fastest part of the track. You want to have all the speed you can hold on to. Here's the leader working traffic.
Well, look at it. Inside, gets a couple of cars before he gets to 3.
He is taking no prisoners.
Still sawing at that wheel.
The Porsche Devon coming through. The number 52. The rear end of that car has a distinctively Cobra-esque look to it, to my eyes. if those are air intakes of some kind to the left and right of that grid on the engine cover. Probably directly feed the carburetors. '54, Clint DeWitt from Sacramento, California, in that Continental Coupe from 1955. Steve Schmidt, 58 356A. Another veteran of SCCA competition.
Brownish red coloring and the silver at the front.
That's Max Jamison from Carmel Valley, California.
Well, he didn't have to go too far, did he?
Yeah, he could walk home from here, but he'd rather drive his 57 356. Another SCCA veteran. Raced up and down the West Coast. Won the last race at Riverside in 1989. The much lamented Riverside International Raceway.
There's our leather straps again, Bob. I'm telling you.
That I gotta tell you, that's an odd fetish, but whatever.
The bonnet straps, bring them back. You know, maybe we don't do leather. Maybe we do some.
Yeah, we gotta have some kind of
carbon fiber.
Right. Some very contemporary technology.
Yeah, right.
No, I'm with you. They look good.
Period correct for sure.
It's going to take the firemen a little longer, though, to get that hood open in case they need to extinguish something. There's a beauty. 1960 Porsche RS. Dietrich Hadlapa from Campos, Spain. 1960 RS60. Raced at Le Mans in 1960. Nürburgring, 1,000 kilometers. Then came to the United States and won the West Coast SCCA Championship, driven by Tony Campbell. '59. That car came all the way from Langlensheim, Germany for Uwe Benger. 59 356A. Raced in period in Germany often. Well, the action continues. Let's go down to Justin Bell.
Why, superstars in their cars. Okay, no cars here today, but Chad McQueen, just seeing you here, you've had a great time. I know you love this, and you're just an enthusiast, right? It doesn't matter who your dad is, what you've raced. You love being here. You love Porsche.
Like you, I love Porsche. I believe they've got the best engineers in the world, and I have my dad's old 58 Speedster, and up until the new Panamera, so all my keys now are Porsches. I just love them, and you know, I don't know, our fathers worked together, and I met you first on the set of Le Mans, what, 40 years ago, and it was my first ride in a Porsche race car. Before that, my dad always had 911s, and I just couldn't get enough. But when he sat me in that 917 at 10, 11 years old, and that smell and the acceleration, the first time he stepped on it, you know, it burns something in your heart and soul forever, you know, at least it did for me. So, and also I got to say, we're proud of you, Justin. I mean, you've come a long way and you're really good at what you do, so congrats, brother.
That was an unashamed plug by my super. When I come back, I'm just going to be half as cool as Chad McQueen, okay, guys? Yeah, absolutely. But yeah, you are looking good. And also, he's a bit like he stays in the tan, gets a tan in the desert, guys. So that's hard earned.
Yeah, I was in Hawaii for 3 weeks, so mahalo.
Yeah. See ya. We'll see you soon, Chad. Take care. You will. So, Chad McQueen, here's the other thing. Can you? I said earlier, seeing Dr. Porsche here. Imagine what it's like for the guys seeing Steve McQueen's son as well. It really is the reunion. Let's go back to that. It's still about the reunion, guys.
Bob, you know, we were talking about the hood straps there. You see him again on that white number 76. You know, one of the great questions is, why were they there, the leather straps? You know, and they go way back, of course, and nobody really has been able to come up with a great answer as to why they first came about. But there is some common sense to it, really, as to why they utilize them. If the regular mechanical latch came apart,
right,
the leather strap
closed.
would certainly work to help keep them on there. It was a really functional idea, not just one for look or show, like I wanted to do.
Well, we have a special guest joining us in the booth once again. My old TV colleague and truly a Porsche driving legend in his own right, David Hobbs, is joining us. David, do you have any input in why exactly those leather straps were put on cars? Was it functional or cosmetic or both?
Because they look very sexy, Bob.
There you go.
Well, in the old days, they didn't have very good bonnet clips, what you'd call a hood clip.
A latch.
I always thought a hood was the mafia, but anyway, that's what they were for, to hold the bonnet down, make sure it would stay down. And all those Bentleys racing at Le Mans back in the 1920s all had those wonderful leather straps. And there you see them there, perfect.
What are your thoughts on Porsche Rennsport Reunion?
Well, I went to the one at Daytona a few years back. Unfortunately, the two they had here already I missed because I was doing the Formula One on those weekends.
Right.
And I have to tell you, I knew it was going to be big, but I really didn't think it was going to be quite this big. I mean, it is extraordinary. I mean, obviously the racing that we're watching now is pretty cool. Obviously a lot of these guys are being a little bit careful with these very expensive cars, but the amount of Porsches here, there's 4 or 5 cars here that I drove with John Fitzpatrick. And but I mean the display of Porsches and the way that Porsche and WeatherTech Laguna Seca put this thing together is quite extraordinary. I mean, it really is a most magnificent. I mean, even my room key at the Monterey Plaza has got a Rennsport badge in it. I mean,
mine does as well at a different hotel.
When Porsche do things, they really do it properly.
Well, they do, no question about it.
David, was there a Porsche racing car that was your favorite that you drove?
Well, I'd have to say, well, the first really hot Porsche I drove was John Fitzpatrick's 935. And I had been driving BMW 320 Turbo before that. And the 935 was just so awesome because it had huge amounts of power, much bigger displacement. But it just wasn't as sophisticated as all that, but it was amazing how well it did handle. Had a great gearbox. And it stopped really well. It had huge brakes, of course, and massive horsepower, 750 horsepower. And we had some good races in that. And we won at Mid-Ohio. We won the 500 at Road America. And then we drove. John had a Moby Dick. He had a long-tail car, and we came 4th at Le Mans in our first run together there in 1982. And that car just ran like a clock, just as beautiful for a whole 24 hours, never missed a beat. And it was 3 factory cars, the Rothmans 956s were lying 1, 2 and 3, and it was their first big outing, and we thought, well, you know, one of these guys has got to drop out and it'll put us on the podium, but unfortunately they all kept going.
Norbert Singer told me that very story, and he had a very different approach to the race because that car they had so many concerns about finished 1st, 2nd and 3rd.
And they did, and we finished 4th. So Porsches were 1, 2, 3, 4.
And with that final turn off of turn 11, onto the front straightaway to face the checkered flag, Gregory Campbell. And his Devon Speedster comes away with the victory in the Gamin class. Congratulations to him.
Well, and as the weekend continues here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, all part of Porsche Rennsport VI. It is just amazing to think that Porsche has been building these stunning cars for 70 years.
Well, that...
And that was the very logo that David Hobbs was mentioning that appears on the hotel keys all around town as Porsche is front and center here in Monterey, California at Porsche Rennsport Reunion VI. I've talked about it a bit during the weekend, but it is like looking through a family photo album. The earliest cars that I covered in my television career. I've watched so many of the great Porsche legends on their way to victories. I've actually driven a lot of the street cars. And it really is a unique brand, I think, in automotive history. David?
Well, they have been the backbone of sports car racing all around the world. I mean, terribly popular here for IMSA, ALMS when it was running. And so, yeah, every form of sports car, Porsche built a car to fit that bill.
For me, the 917, the 935, and the 962 are three of the greatest racing machines I've ever had a chance to see. Just legendary, iconic machines. And to think I actually owned a 911, something as a kid I never thought I'd do. And boy, it lived up to the billing as a tremendous car.
Let's have a look at the results of Group 5, the Gamin Cup, named for one of the earliest Porsches. And David, I should have pointed out, Ralph is absolutely gobsmacked about 917s. He will not shut up about them.
I won't.
And since you raced them, be prepared for that. Congratulations to Gregory Campbell and to everyone in Race Group 5. Having a great weekend here at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. And there's still more to come. We have more racing, more visits around the property. Parking lots still full here on the fourth and final day of Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6. So stick around. After a break, we'll be back with more.
So David, the 917.
The ultimate driving machines really do deserve the ultimate driving weekend.
This race is underway. But a few hundred meters away from the checkered flag.
Wow! Oh no, a race leader!
This is so exciting.
Here we go. And there's a checkered flag!
Isn't it time you connected to something greater? Sometimes the best way to connect is to disconnect. This moment of escape was brought to you by Haggerty, for people who love cars.
back here, Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6. WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. Winding up a spectacular weekend here on the Monterey Bay Peninsula. Let's go down to the paddock area and catch up with Justin once again.
Well, we've talked to a lot of the legends that are from former generations, talking to a current legend, icon Patrick Pilet, part of the Porsche GTLM program. Patrick, we were just joking because we're not so young anymore, but here we're like, he's a youngling, really. You've loved the weekend. I mean, it's been special, I'm sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing to come here, have so many cars, beautiful cars you can see maybe only one time in your life, and sharing a lot of stories with real legend, because they are the real legend, and yeah, that's just pleasure here.
But I've never raced against you on track until today. And he was in the tractor race too. And I see your helmet at the IMSA races, and I'm like, there he is, there he is. I mean, doing things like this, it makes you understand the sort of passion of Porsche, right? It's crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, that's a perfect mix about being like really competitive on some aspect and really a lot more fun on other aspects. Like we have this morning also, we go with the 2 RSR, we go a massive burnout in the first lap and just give some fun to the guys. We're racing with all, and this kind of race, like the tractor race, is yeah, it's just pure fun, and people love it.
And normally when we get to talk, there's a lot of pressure. You're out of the car. I'm like, hey, can I talk to Patrick? You know, if he's a good stint, if it's good, you're happy, if you know. But in 2 weeks, we go to Petit Le Mans for the season finale. GTLM in the IMSA series for Porsche is so important. And the last race is going to decide the championship and all the positions. How are you feeling as the Porsche team?
We feel strong. We have a really good car all season long. We get a bit of bad luck, but we have great results, like Sebring victory was something really special. Petit Le Mans is always special. I drove my car, won Petit Le Mans in 15. Overall, will be more difficult, I think, this year. But anyway, we'll try really to finish with a good point. Also, it's always good to finish by a victory and going holidays with a good result. So everybody's pushing really hard in Weissach, and we have some testing at the beginning of the week, so we are really prepared now.
Perfect. Well, I'll see you in Atlanta in 2 weeks, or on a tractor somewhere near you soon. See you, buddy.
Thanks very much, Justin. Continuing with David Hobbs. David, during our commercial break, you mentioned that it occurred to you you had driven something earlier than the 935.
Actually, yeah, I'd forgotten. I drove for Sterling Moss after he had that very bad crash in 1961. After he'd recovered, he decided not to race again. And he ran his own team, Smart, Sterling Moss Auto Racing Team. And I drove with Lucky Kasner at the Nürburgring in Sterling's 904. And Lucky Kasner had won the race the year before. I'm not sure whether it was with Dan Gurney or with Sterling in a birdcage Maserati. Anyway, he and I drove this 904. And quite honestly, I can't remember what happened to us in the race, but I do remember being scared to death on the way to the race with Sterling Moss, because the 1,000 kilometres at the Nürburgring used to attract about 120, 130,000 people. And in those days, there were only a couple of roads in. So the traffic jam was about 15 miles long. So Sterling said, I say, chaps, we can't be waiting around for these chaps all the time. We better get on out. And we just drove down the long side of the road at about 80 miles an hour in whatever we had it. I'm sitting in the back, absolutely petrified as we hurtle down the road. And of course, people keep pulling out to try and stop him. So then he'd duck round behind him and go down the grass verge for a couple of 100 yards, then back up. I mean, it was... We only just made it in time, but that was actually my first race in a Porsche, and that was in 1965, something, it was 4 or 5, can't remember. But of course, a lot of the guys that were in that race, of course, a lot of them were killed, including Lucky Kasner. But it's great for me to come here and see a lot of those drivers still around. I mean, and how racing drivers change. I mean, when you're racing, you hardly, and carry on across the paddock. But now everybody's all buddy, you remember those races, and I can't believe how friendly everybody is here. And it's great to meet up people like Richard Atwood, David Piper, Jackie Oliver, Jackie Hicks, Derek Bell. I mean, they're all here. Most of them have got their wives with them, so it's really good fun to meet together in the Porsche have a wonderful paddock room for us to use, you know, hospitality area, and it's terrific to see those guys here. And of course, every 4 years, unfortunately, at our age, not as many show up the next time around. But, I went to the one at Daytona. What was it, 8 years ago now? And a driver came up to me. Oh gosh, what was his name? Oh God, it's just escaped me from it. It'll come back. But the last time I'd seen him was at Le Mans in 1969, when I was driving the Ford GT40 with Mike Hailwood, and the two 908s touched going through the kink on the main straight there at about 208 miles an hour. One of them got glued to the guardrail, and when I arrived on the scene, brakes full on, big cloud of dust, can't see any smoke, dust, flames, and this engine and the chassis is stuck to the guardrail, blazing away. And as I burst out of the smoke, there, bouncing end over end down the road, was the cab of this 908. And then out drops the driver, and he starts bouncing down the road. So I'm, you know, got to miss them both if I can. It was my in lap, actually. As I went in the pits, I said to Mike, God, we're going to be under a caution here for hours. I said, some guys just got killed at the kink. Well, hey presto, the meeting in Daytona 8 years ago, up he pops, large and low. David, how are you? Very good to see you again.
Oh, that was Udo Schutz, wasn't it?
Udo Schutz, that's right. Now, Udo Schutz was a little bit overweight, so I think all that sort of blubber saved him, you know, as he bounced down the road. And,
I hope all these stories are in your new book, Habbo. But right now, let's get down to Justin Bell with another of the services Porsche offers its passionate customers.
This weekend at Rennsport Reunion VI, Porsche are all about engaging with their fan base, with the enthusiasts, the owners, the aspiring owners. And of course, it's so much about the future, but it's also about the current and the past. So I just thought I'd find my way into their Porsche Classic exhibition and catch up with Alexander. Alex, nice to see you here.
Good to see you.
Absolutely.
Hi, good to have you.
And, well, thank you. And of course, this has been a hot spot for people because everybody dreams of how they would restore their Porsche, correct? And this is one way that they can do that.
Exactly, and this is the place where we show what is on offer of Porsche Classic, the whole world of spare parts, of restoration, of accessories. So that's the place to be.
So show me along a bit here. Obviously, I can see that you have sort of paints on offer. You have all the. It's really about showing people what they can do. But what have you got here with these engines? What's been going on here?
This is a typical demonstrator to really show what we are able to do in our restoration workshop, either in Atlanta or Stuttgart. We have an engine which is often seen in like a barn find, like a before situation. And you have then the engine after our colleagues with a lot of experience working on these kind of starting points, and they end up like just behind.
And there you are there.
Beauty after it's being restored.
Perfect. Now, obviously, engines are one part, the heart, the DNA, obviously, of Porsche. But here we have the most beautiful, original car. I mean, this is actually going to be undergoing a restoration now.
Exactly. We're in the first phase, so we took off all the paint and all the stuff that was on the body, and now we see the naked truth, so to speak. So this is a beautiful 356 of a US customer, and now we start the bodywork, and here exactly on the rear you see there will be a lot of work going into this. So we're talking about around about 2,000 labor hours, and this until this car is again a beautiful 356.
Wow. I mean, and it's a real commitment for any owner to say, I'm going to do a restoration like this. It is not for the faint of heart, is it?
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And here we are, you know, your service provider to really do it in a factory quality. And afterwards you have a car as it left in 56, the factory.
Yeah. And sometimes even better, just take a look over here. Now, the story behind it, this was a barn find. It disappeared for 27 years, you told me. And now, I mean, it's better than it looked at it was on the dealership floor.
Yes, and it was not far off here in San Francisco. They found it. It was in a miserable state. And this is really an iconic car of the history of Porsche. So it's 1972. Jürgen Barth, as a driver, won his class in Le Mans with this car. And so this is now brought back in the original condition as it was in 72 during the race in Le Mans.
unreal. You can almost chart the journey of what you could and would and should do to your Porsche if you had the chance. But there's one final jewel in the crown, and if you can look out of that window, you see these unbelievable gold-painted cars. Tell me quickly the story behind them.
You see the new car, our 911 Turbo S Exclusive Series, a small series of 500 units. Next to it, you see what could be his grandfather, our 911 Turbo Classic Series, and this is probably the smallest small series ever built. It's 001 of 001. So what did we do? We took a body shell of a 993 that was sitting in our warehouse over the last 20 years, and this body shell was really waiting for some crazy people with crazy ideas. So we came up with the idea, why not taking 6,500 spare parts that are still available in our parts range and build a brand new car, and that's what we did. So here you see the only 993 Turbo with a production year 2018.
Wow. Well, what a journey it is. It's like a kaleidoscope of all things Porsche, and I'm sure the fans are enjoying it as much as it appears you are, and interacting with everybody. And that's the whole thing about Porsche. It's not just about improving their products for the future, it's about curating the legacy. And if you have an old Porsche, I don't suggest you go and hang out with Alex. It could cost you a lot of money.
No need to have an old Porsche anymore, right? You can have a new, older model.
That's right.
Porsche.
What they call new old stock, brand new parts that have been sitting on the shelf for decades. Well, we've got some demo laps going on among cars like the unbelievable 918 Hybrid.
GT2 RS. Spectacular.
Got another race coming up shortly, so we'll step away after giving you a look at the U.S. Air Force Thunderbird flight demonstration team appearing at an air show in nearby Salinas, California. Now that is some horsepower. There they go, right over the track. Somebody's got some pull. Just awesome to see. If you guys hurry, you can come back here and see all the cool cars. I'm just saying. No extra charge for that. We'll take a break and be right back.
The Ultimate Driving Machines really do deserve the ultimate driving weekend.
This race is underway. But a few hundred meters away from the checkered flag.
Wow! Oh no, a race leader! This is so exciting.
Here we go. And there's a checkered flag.
Isn't it time you connected to something greater? Sometimes the best way to connect is to disconnect. This moment of escape was brought to you by Haggerty, for people who love cars.
Back here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, taking a look down towards turn number 3 here at Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6. Getting late into the afternoon out here on the West Coast, just about 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Well, if you folks out there are within the sound of my voice and you're thinking about maybe loading up and heading out, stay right where you are, because in about 10 minutes, Race Group 5 will be on the track, the Stuttgart Cup cars, and that is some of the real heavy metal, the Porsche 956, 962, RS Spiders, K8 Spiders, and so on track shortly.
That's one of the more highly anticipated groups. Let's head down back into the paddock area one more time to Justin.
Well, in the world of historic vintage and classic racing and restoration, Canepa is really the leading name in that industry and hobby. Bruce Canepa behind the wheel right now. So I guess it's a 956, this one, right? 962. Bruce, you've been very involved with the entire planning for this event with Porsche. How do you feel now as we're winding down on the other side of this epic undertaking?
Well, it's beyond everything we imagined. I mean, you know, you have all these ideas, and everybody's busy working on all of them, and you don't really have time to think about them. You just do them, and then when you get here and see it all, you just, it's kind of a shock therapy. You know, it really is. It's amazing all the stuff that's here.
How many cars in the paddock have run through your shop, or is it impossible to say?
I think between stuff that's being raced and stuff that's in the different, like the heritage display and stuff, there's probably 40 to 50 cars.
Remarkable. And at the end of the day, of course, we were talking about it earlier when we watched your race. You're an accomplished driver, both professional and now historic. What's it like taking one of these round? I mean, I broke my car, as you know, but I saw you go by yesterday, and I thought, my God, what young talent is behind the wheel. And then I remembered it was you.
It is young talent. Age has nothing to do with how old you are.
No, that's true. But you must. I mean, it really. I know this is one of the cars that you put through the shop, and now you're seeing it. You're behind the wheel. It must just feel great. What a way to round out the weekend.
Oh yeah, it couldn't be more fun. I'm fortunate I can drive the cars still to some level, you know, that's competitive, and be able to work on all the other stuff that we're doing to make the event great.
So, Rennsport 7, what do you think? Will we all have to book our tickets one day?
I think I'll sit back, tell everybody what to do, and just race.
Perfect. Great idea. Good luck out there, Bruce. I mean, look at these cars, guys, just while we're here. These ones went by me yesterday. They were so mind-numbingly fast. Obviously, a 962, we're talking about a certain era ending really at the early 90s. But then you get over here. I mean, this is the full-blown WeatherTech car from, actually, what year is this? You'll be able to tell me. You've got it on your list. But you only have to look at the head and neck restraint systems. You look at the steering wheel, look at the aero, look at the front splitters, and, of course, those monstrous Michelins on there. This is a decade and a lifetime apart. And right in there, I'll just jump in. Are you ready, Gunnar?
Hey, Justin.
Are you feeling sporty at the front end?
Yeah. Luckily, the WeatherTech guys have given me an awesome car. And I'm extremely honored to be driving the 2009 class-winning car at Le Mans. So Jerome and I should have a good race.
How fabulous. Basically, you've got to remember his dad let me drive the tractor, so I'm just saying.
Gunnar Jeanette in that amazing car that really brought Porsche back to prototype racing. The RS Spider. And there's Jerome Bleekemolen in a second machine.
And I was talking with Gunnar about it earlier today in the paddock area, and it's probably a real good shot at the RS Spider being the last customer prototype to be built by the Porsche factory. You look at what happened with the 919, the technology just went too far. You can't really do anything with it.
Yeah, they'd be impossibly expensive for
these 962s that we're looking at now, the 956 and the 962 variant of it, which had a slightly longer wheelbase so the driver's feet were behind the wheels. That is one of the most successful race cars, period. I mean, they won just everything. Multiple years. I mean, they were around for over a decade, racing virtually the same model and just unbelievably successful. Jim Busby ran those escort cars. I was driving for Bruce Levin, and I drove obviously for John Fitzpatrick, and we had 962s. There's a 962 here. This one, Derek Bell and Al Holbert and Chip Robinson between them won, I don't know, 37 races.
Dozens of races, yep.
One Daytona, one Sebring, one Le Mans. I mean, they just won everything, and they kept on winning for years.
Derek's driving in here this afternoon.
Unbelievably successful cars.
Yeah.
Bob Aiken's Coca-Cola car. There's the
my
Hotchkiss
number 11
family car.
cars here, which I raced at Le Mans in 1983. That is here. It's not racing, but it's on display here.
Comes a Dyson car right there.
A couple of Dyson cars. That RS Spider ahead of it is also a Dyson machine. Rob Dyson, very well-known Porsche racer and collector.
So, Bob, you know, we've been talking so much about Porsche. Well, the legendary Porsche Shield. Do you know anything about the history of the Shield?
Me?
Yeah.
No, I can't say that I do.
Well, obviously you have the Porsche family name across the very top. And then you have the antlers in the yellow and the red and black stripes. Those are taken from the crest of the Kingdom of Württemberg, which is where the city of Stuttgart actually is from. And that's, of course, with Stuttgart, you see the prancing horse in there, which is Porsche's headquarters there in the capital.
That was going to be my guess, yeah, was the province of whatever it was. Although my eye is taken to that rampant black stallion right in the middle of the crest. Where have I seen that before?
Well, I know, and of course Stuttgart was Stuttgarten due to the patronage of the royals, the horse breeding that took place in the area.
That's right. Ferrari got their prancing stallion from the insignia of a famous Italian World War I fighter pilot. And their family gave it to Enzo Ferrari, and he put it on the crest of yellow, the color of Maranello in Italy, and the rest is history. Here's a look at the Stuttgart Cup lineup. And the names of the drivers are important. Guys you know, David Donahue, Brian Redman. I saw Justin Bell's name in there. He can't change clothes that quickly. Well, Bruce Canepa, we heard from. Eric Edenholm, a victor in the tractor race a little bit earlier on. David Murray, my good buddy from Atlanta. But it's the cars, 962C, 956, RS Spider, and on and on and on. Now this takes me back to the earliest days of my career when I came out to this racetrack, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, to watch these cars race pretty much in the trim and livery you see them in now.
Because David Donahue is one of the drivers, son of Mark Donahue, who, of course, absolutely swamped the Can-Am in 1972 with the Porsche 917-30, which is a long wheelbase version of the 917-10. And so David is in this race.
And Mark was your teammate.
And Mark was my teammate, driving another car, which I can't mention on the air today.
Well, I just did.
It begins with an F.
And it was a beautiful 512.
Yeah.
I hope these stories are all in Hobo, Motor Racer, Motor Mouth.
Yeah, well, Hobo is selling quite well. Sold a few today, and we're up there around about the 9,000 mark, so hopefully it continues to sell.
Awesome.
And it has got lots of these stories in it.
You buy about 100,000 or so of the books, and you'll make the New York Times bestseller list. Gunnar Jeanette, you're on Bleekemolen in the RS. Whoa!
Gunnar!
Light him up.
Boy, he took it deep into the Andretti, didn't he?
We've actually got a Daytona prototype in that group as well. Right at the back, Alex Jobs. Ruby Tuesday car.
Canepa's going to give them a run in his 962 with the Canon logos on it.
Yeah, I look at that car and I think of Vern Schuppan, another of the Porsche racing legends from Australia, who actually manufactured cars like this in Australia, raced them extensively with his team across Japan and Southeast Asia.
I keep looking at the Lowenbrow car, and That is such that is a priceless piece of racing history, that car, because it is truly the winningest car in North America.
It's a beautiful piece for Lee Giannone. Coca-Cola logo. So connected to Bob Aiken and his team. Not to mention the 14 up ahead, the Lowenbrow Special Porsche. Al Holbert, Derek Bell, Chip Robinson. Al Unser Jr. raced that car. Al Unser Sr., I believe, spent some time in it. A number of great drivers.
Derek actually driving the car again today. Boy, how many people had a poster of that car hanging on a wall, myself included.
Those are great days.
The car behind it actually ran multiple paint schemes and is paying homage to both. That's why half the car is in the Rothmans colors and the other half in a different livery, as it ran both that way. Brian Redmond behind the wheel today. So Brian Redmond chasing Derek Bell. Heard that before, haven't we? David, what was it about Brian Redmond that made him such a great wheelman?
That question was for you. What was it about Brian Redmond that made him so successful?
Well, of course, he's a Lancashire lad, and of course the north of England always pride themselves on being a tough group, the Lancastrians and the Yorkshire men. And he was undoubtedly one of the most underrated drivers ever. The only race he did not win was the Le Mans 24-hour race. I mean, he won all those great classics, the Nürburgring 1,000 kilometers, the Spa 1,000 kilometers on the old 8.5-mile circuit, the most dangerous track in the world. And he won there 5 times in 917s and 917s. So he was just unbelievably dogged, and this is a typical example going down the inside of Derek Bell there into turn 2 now, lads. You're both in your late 70s. Let's not have any silly stuff on track. But yeah, I mean, he just won everything with every co-driver. Jack Hicks, Joe Siffert, Derek Bell, me. We only did about 3 races together, and we won one of them and came 4th in one of the others. So, very, very good driver.
Brian also deserves kudos. He was a part of Porsche Rennsport Reunion pretty much from the beginning.
Much so, yes.
Yeah. Bob Carlson came to Brian and said, you know how to handle these vintage events. Help me out.
Exactly. And he was very, very, very involved in the beginning of the Rennsport. We're up to 6 now, as we know, but yeah.
Anybody whispering about when number 7 will be?
I've heard 2 different theories on that. I've heard some folks say that it won't be until the 75th anniversary for Porsche, but then a lot of people are saying, no, there'll be one before that.
Yes, one of their great cars, like the Spider there, or the 911, or, the 906, 908, 910, 962, whatever, will have a birthday between now and then, and that's a good enough reason for me to come to a gathering like this again.
But you can be sure it'll be at least 3 years before we do it again.
That's probably a safe guess. Sad to say. So while Gunnar Jeanette takes off over the horizon, pick up another battle. 10 and the 161. This is for 9th place.
Yeah, that's the former Hotchkiss car, the number 10. Used to run with the Wins logos on the side. 1986 962. Ran from 86 through 88 in competition. That's an old Dyson car there, the number 161.
Carlos
Dyson is here this weekend.
Yep. Carlos is no spring chicken either, as I recall. He's a regular in domestic American sports car racing on the IMSA side for many, many years.
Yeah, that was the last official Porsche 962 built by the factory chassis, 962148. It was also the last 962 built for IMSA competition.
That's a lot of 962s.
Yeah, won the Grand Prix of Tampa.
Allegra Racing is the name of Dick Casada's team, I believe. There's the Ruby Tuesday car from Alex Job. Long-time sports car racer, preparer of beautifully turned out machines and lots of race victories.
Yeah, very successful race preparer. Now he's given up the toil of racing and started doing the restoration business. So now he's just doing what he likes and hasn't got the racing pressure on him anymore. And he's obviously his restorations will be absolutely exquisite.
David, we've talked about the 917 and how it was a very challenging car. It wasn't designed for a short track like this. The 962, however, seemed to do very well just about everywhere you took it.
Well, you're right. One of the things about the 962, which we're looking at a couple of examples here, it could race anywhere. Long track, short track, tight tracks, wide open tracks. You couldn't get any much more wide open than Le Mans. And it was very successful everywhere it went. And it was just an incredible car to drive. I mean, it would idle. You could have it idling in the paddock for half an hour, then put it in the truck, then wait for a couple of weeks, take it out of the truck at the next race, and do a 1,000-kilometer race with the same car, same engine, hardly do anything except wipe it down with an oily rag. I mean, it was just amazingly reliable. A lot of people thought it was very expensive at the day, which it was pretty expensive. But the fact was, it was very cost-effective, really, because it just didn't break much. I mean, if you crashed it, oh yeah, okay, then it got expensive because parts were expensive. But it was very cost-effective to run, really, the 962.
And because Porsche produced the car, it would also turn up at the racetrack with a great big truck full of spare parts. So you didn't need to have all those parts in your inventory. You could just go over to the truck, get what you needed to fix whatever your problem was, and off you go.
They had a whole field operation that was, without doubt, the most successful there. As you say, the truck, everywhere you went in racing, either here in America or in Europe, there was always a Porsche truck there, and they had everything in it, which is part of Porsche's, determination and, of course, the way of approaching it. As well as they can possibly, they're prepared for anything at any time, and have been all along. Massive support system.
In that era, just about all the top teams were winning in the 962, so it became a battle of the organizations, not so much the car. So what was the difference makers between the teams, whether it was a Chupin, a Brune, or whoever it might have been?
Well, like you say, everybody had a go, and of course all the organisers, the promoters, we're trying to get people like March and Lola and Ferrari and Lancia to build successful cars to compete against the 962. But none of them just had the perseverance and the willpower that Porsche did. And the fact is, in the end, of course, everybody ended up driving a 962. And so you'd have a whole field of them. And practically everything else. March and Chevrolet tried to match them, but they just could never get the speed out of them or the reliability.
And then as technology marched on and manufacturers got much more secretive and proprietary about their cars, you couldn't buy, say, a Nissan GTP car or a Jaguar XJR9 or, whatever it might happen to be. They wouldn't sell them to you.
Well, Porsche really saw it racing. It's not only in their DNA and in their blood, it's also a big profit center. And so, yes, you're right. I mean, when the 962 was finally vanquished by the Nissan and then the Toyota, the little 2-liter Toyota,
right?
Technology had changed a lot. Everything had marched on. But as you say, you only saw the factory ones race. You couldn't buy one.
Right.
Whereas Porsche saw a fantastic opportunity and sold a lot of them, hundreds of them probably. But and nobody else ever did that.
Well, I'd give a shout out to Audi, who now has a customer racing program and they bring a truck to the track and so forth. But it was really Porsche who came up with that idea, that innovation, and had great success with it.
One of the things that always struck me about the 962, David, from the driver's perspective, the windscreen in front of it always seemed so big and open. It seemed like the driver's view from inside the cockpit must have been really good.
Well, yeah, everybody asked me what was my favorite car, and I mean, I raced, I don't know, I probably raced 80 or 90 different cars. And my two favorite long distance cars were the Ford GT40 back in the 60s and obviously time marched on, 15 years down the road. The 962 was the absolute perfect long distance car. I mean, it had a synchromesh gearbox, so the gear shift was a little bit slower, but I mean, everything worked absolutely perfectly, and you could see out of it, you can get in and out of it relatively quickly for driver changes, and it really was more or less the perfect long distance car. And of course, they were all right-hand drive, not left-hand drive, which most circuits being right, going clockwise, the right-hand side is the best side to sit in the cockpit. So it was, absolutely the perfect car. Good power, a lot of grip. It's the first aerodynamic car I ever drove. It's that underwing under the nose there, and the tunnels right down the car. And for its day, it had enormous grip.
I spoke with Norbert Singer, and our viewers have heard that interview in which he talked about the development of the 962 and the 956 that preceded it. And that subject you just mentioned as we watched this battle was they had no idea how to put ground effects into a sports car, and in the end they really got it right.
That's a fight for third, by the way, right there that we're watching. Canepa's still in front of Higgins.
And those are two very different iterations of the 962. You could tell just by looking at the aerodynamic treatment of the two cars.
Well, of course, as they became so widely used and so many people own them, of course, then you get all the clever dicks saying, oh, well, I can always improve.
Right.
I can improve on that. So, yeah, you saw different bodywork iterations, and some people, the cars here, I noticed yesterday walking around the paddock, the nose treatment, I mean, look at that one with the Dunlop on the front. It's very different. The underwing is very shrouded, but they obviously see the 14 car is very different to the 5 if you look at the nose.
Yeah, the white car that you're talking about.
This car, the Cannon car, has a very different front end to it.
Yeah, that was a Chupin car. Yep. Chassis number TS for Team Chupin, 962-89002, built back in 1989 as one of 5 carbon chassis.
Yep, that was Vern Chupin, great Australian racer, Porsche factory pilot, came from David's era, driving Porsches.
My last professional race actually was Dijon, France, in a Reinhold Jost owned 962. And that year I also raced at Le Mans with the British Porsche importer, ran a car, and that had a completely different bodywork which had been designed.
Whoops.
Whoops, oh dear.
Somebody's gone around, coming back over the curb.
Boy, watch out, because here comes everybody else up the hill.
That's Mr.
Don't pull out on the traffic. As you can see, the car, it's got a locked differential. They didn't have a differential, which is why it's doing all that horrible sort of juddering there, because trying to turn it around, it doesn't like doing very tight corners. But yeah, it was my last Le Mans, was 1989. I drove with Damon Hill.
Yeah, Damon Hill and some kid from Scandinavia, as I recall.
Yeah.
I was impressed you were driving with Damon Hill.
We dropped out actually, but we didn't do very well. Yeah. Unfortunately, this car was designed to be very high downforce and low drag. Well, it was about 18 miles an hour slower down the straight than all the other 962s, and it wasn't any quicker through the corners. So,
not exactly low drag as Giannone brings that one, did it? Yeah.
I don't think he hit anything, did he?
And we couldn't tell from that angle.
Looked like she got a little dusty.
Wonder if he had a puncture or something. Or maybe he just decided I don't want to risk anything, which is the smart thing to do. Oops, and another pirouette.
It's over to Andretti and the Daytona prototype.
The number 23.
Spada.
Ready Spada. Lake Oswego, Oregon. Riley Daytona prototype. A long history in IMSA racing. Okay, we had a quick look around. Car looks okay. Let's go back out and have some fun.
One of the prettiest 962s I think ever. Bob Aiken car with the Coca-Cola livery.
We had some great liveries back in the day. Bruce Levin, the world's fastest garbage man as he built himself, always had great liveries on his cars. Of course, the 14 Lowenbrow Special, the BF Goodrich cars from Jim Busby's team.
I drove a couple of times with Bruce Levin, and we drove at Riverside, which of course is gone now. We drove at Road America, which certainly has not gone, and is very successful. And he and I came second in the 500 miler at Road America back in, gosh, that'd be about 83 or 4. I don't know why I wouldn't be driving for John Fitzpatrick right then, but maybe he was doing something else. But we came second in the 500, Bruce Levin and I, in his 962, which was absolutely gorgeous, the Bayside car.
Bayside disposal.
And I had lunch with his son here in Carmel just a month ago for the Rolex reunion at Monterey. He and I had lunch in Carmel and heard some great stories from him. I haven't seen him since he was a small boy.
Yeah, I saw Mike Levin this weekend. Yeah. He is retiring.
Exactly. Last time I saw him, he was just starting high school.
Yeah, he's a good guy, Mike.
Oh, we seem to have got that off the track.
That's the important bit. See if we can get it restarted. A little bit of a wave by going on here. The incident is behind them.
And that's what I call a pace car.
There's a lot more horsepower than a lot of the Porsches we've seen on racetrack this weekend. We had that chat earlier in the weekend. And while they either try to bump start it or take it back home, let's go to Justin Bell while we're under caution.
Well, we talked about it at the top of this race that obviously it's one of the highlights of the weekend. And Kevin Doran, you're out here. I know you've got a couple of cars out there. Dad's in one of them. Yep. What's it like for you? You were Al Holbert's crew chief that whole way through. You saw these cars in period with these best drivers in the world. I know we're seeing gentlemen out there in a way driving them now. What's it like for you seeing basically the cars you curated out there driving?
It's really awesome to see the cars running again. You've got 3 or 4 cars that raced, for 5 years in a row back in the early 80s. So Derek running the Lowenbrow car, fantastic. Looked at the car when I got here Wednesday and actually got to drive it out for a photo shoot. And I was like, man, I remember this car, and it's just exactly the same as it was in 1987, I guess, when we stopped running chassis HR1. So that car is really super cool, and having Derek here running it is just incredible. So it's been fun.
When when the 956 arrived and you first got your hands on one, 962 as well, it was so far ahead of anything else we'd seen up in that era. What was that like, having that suddenly getting, as a young mechanic, as a young crew chief, getting your hands on basically the same as the equivalent of the 919 now?
Yeah, pretty much. It was a cutting-edge car. Right out of the box, it was faster than any of the competition by a good amount. The only trouble was there were 6 or 8 or sometimes even 12 teams running 962s all against each other. So you had to have the best Porsche. And then we had some reliability issues in the early days, with the axles and various little parts like that. So and it was a different era, cars were not so reliable in the 80s. Today it's expected to go 24 hours full speed. And back in the 80s, you had to coax that car to the end. You had to give it a little bit of care, and the drivers had to be, sort of careful with what they were doing mechanically to the car. So guys like Derek and Al just knew how to get 99% out of the car but not step over the edge mechanically and hurt it. So it was good.
And of course, it's great having Al's son here. Just wonderful to have him here. And Dad talked about it when I interviewed him yesterday, carrying on the lineage. Pretty emotional for you still, coming to a track like this. It happened a long time ago now, but in our lives, but it's just like yesterday that the world of motorsport and Porsche motorsport lost Al Holbert.
Yeah, it's definitely emotional for me. When I had the tribute earlier today, I had tears in my eyes, and actually I hadn't thought about it until just now, but this this was my first race after Al died. I was here with the IndyCar program, the Porsche IndyCar program, and Al's team. A week or two later, right here at this track. So my first pro race back after that terrible accident. So, it is an emotional time, and it was really enjoyable to spend 3 or 4 days with Todd. He actually schooled me on some 356s, that his grandpa drove, and I've just started reading about his grandfather's history recently, and he was quite the driver himself. And Todd's kept up with all that and read up on that. So it was fun looking at some of the old cars and the new cars.
Well, thanks very much, Kevin. And of course, we're all about the drivers, we're all about the cars. But there were a lot of not quite unsung, but behind-the-scene heroes like Kevin Doran, who really made American sports car racing with Porsche what it is today.
Great to see Kevin Doran here.
Yeah, absolutely. He doesn't seem to have changed a bit to me.
I was thinking
talking about Todd Hulbert. I was at a dinner the other night that Gunnar Jeanette's father, Kevin, put on at the Bernardus Lodge just down the road, the Carmel Valley Road. And Todd was there. It's the first time I'd ever met Todd. And he was sitting at a table, sort of looking in my direction. And I mean, gosh, he looks some ways just so like his dad. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And it's also unbelievable to think it's 30 years ago this weekend that Al was killed in that aeroplane crash. It's just hard to believe. But certainly Al was a tremendous driver and a very, very, very good organizer. I mean, he was extremely well organized, ran terrific teams, and had people like Doran there to help him.
Tom Siebold.
And they were they were the guys to beat, because as he said, Kevin said, there was 11 or 12 teams of these cars, and so everybody was working to try and make the best of it.
You had to make them quicker.
Kevin Doran was one of those guys that could really make it work. And those teething troubles he is pointing out, the very first time I drove a 956 at Le Mans was in 1983 with John Fitzpatrick. And I was bollocking down the road between Arnage and the Porsche curves, and the thing just suddenly stopped. I mean, it didn't blow up, it just stopped. So I did the usual hero driver thing. I took the back off myself because I couldn't back on again. But I had a look in there because I don't know what the hell I'm looking at. All I know is the thing stopped. And it turned out to be the fuel pump drive. And Mr. Singer, or Dr. Singer, who's here this week, Norbert Singer, who designed the car, and the engine designer is also here. He said to me the next day, David, the fuel pump drive broke. We have never seen one of these break before. I said, well, it wasn't me, pal. It just broke.
Nothing I did.
I mean, I can't break a fuel pump drive. Yeah, I couldn't believe it. So that was another little mod that had to be changed, I suppose, or beefed up.
Yep. Well, that's what racing does. Finds the weak link.
Yeah.
You fix that.
Jeanette is definitely not the weak link in this one.
No, he's got some time in these cars, and he's reveling in it, I'm sure. This has been actually a pretty incident-filled race, all things considered. What have we got here at the top of the corkscrew? Bit of traffic, bit of agricultural racing. Oh, look at that bodywork flex as the number 5 comes over the curb.
The famous corkscrew, one of the most famous corners in the world, really.
I would say so.
And it's a pretty unique corner. It's obviously so much safer now, much wider. Where he ran off the road there when I raced here, the road, there was a curb, and that was it. That was the end of it. Yep. No runoff area anywhere, and sort of coming up here to this hill was much. I mean, you were hemmed in. The hills came right to the edge of the road.
Well, David, you would have ran here back in the 1.9 mile configuration.
I never raced on this configuration.
Right.
Yeah. Well, the 1.9 was very fast, because where they turn very sharp left now, going down into basically turn 1 and turn 2, it went straight on around the corner, and it was right up to the edge of the road. There was a bank, the track, and then there was a steep bank, and then the in and out road was right at the top. People stopped in trucks just right there. It swept on around a very fast left-hander and went straight up to the top of the hill. Yes, it was a fast old track, very fast.
Very scary.
And the Can-Am cars used to thunder around here. Horrendous lap speed. They added all this infield, of course, they added it to make it long enough, regulation-wise, to run MotoGP.
That's right.
Right.
And, of course, they were thinking in the back of their minds maybe Formula One one day, but it's just long enough for Formula One now. What is it, 2.5 now?
2.238, not quite. But certainly, as you say, one of the best-known tracks in the world. I would put the corkscrew up there with Eau Rouge, or the, what is it, 130R at Suzuka. Gosh, where else? Think of your favorite corner. Meanwhile, congratulations to Gunnar Jeanette as he waves to the crowd, winner of the Stuttgart Cup, Group 6.
When we follow him around here, this left-hander, talking about Hulbert, now we're coming up to this right-hander. He was driving a Chevrolet Monza.
He's going to.
I was driving my BMW 320 Turbo, and on that last right-hander, I overtook him on the outside and on the last lap and won the race. I managed to stay in front and going through the last turn. Luckily for me, I was driving against Al, who didn't have homicidal tendencies.
Kemp beat Higgins to the corner as well, and Bruce will take third. There are those two, Bruce in the white car and Higgins in the yellow and blue.
Another race still to come here in the final hour or so of our coverage here at Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6. So stick around. We'll be right back to WeatherTech Raceway.
The ultimate driving machines really do deserve the ultimate driving weekend.
This race is underway. But a few hundred meters away from the checkered flag. Wow! Oh no, a race leader!
This is so exciting.
Here we go. And there's a checkered flag!
Isn't it time you connected to something greater? Sometimes the best way to connect is to disconnect. This moment of escape was brought to you by Haggerty, for people who love cars.
Why do we gather at a historic circuit? Why do we all roll out hundreds of Porsche race cars from museums, collections and garages around the world? Why do we apply fuel and spark to machinery tuned over generations of Porsche engineers and mechanics? Why do we leave pit lane and race these priceless cars? Why do we spend the weekend talking about flat 12s and livery colours and lap times? Why do we ask how it felt when the 917.10 came on boost? Or what it was like to take Mulsanne straight at 246 miles an hour, in the rain, in the middle of the night?
You know, race cars are meant to be on the track. You can leave them in a museum, but I think they should be used, and that's exactly what this event is doing.
It's a great sight for me to walk through and see these cars right, left and center.
And you meet not only old friends, old drivers, old fans, old cars, you know. But having this surrounding possibility of being here and driving like I can drive today in my old Lamborghini car from '86 makes it a unique event, which brings back very precious moment and is another fuel for the next couple of years.
Why do we all show up here every few years to see and hear and smell and be part of this magnificent spectacle? Why indeed?
Beautifully put. As we welcome you back to Porsche Rennsport Reunion VI from WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca in California. It's been a great weekend. I'm Bob Varsha, working with Ralph Shaheen, Justin Bell, and our guests, David Haab, Bassem Wassef, and all of the people who have made this weekend possible. Some filming going on track right now. We still have a race to come. You know, we've used the phrase the Porsche family a lot this weekend, and that's an all-inclusive term. But in the case of our man Justin, it's also absolutely true, because his father Derek is a true Porsche driving legend, and this weekend the two of them have had that precious opportunity to spend time together.
If you sit down, just a word of advice, people will ask you for your autograph, but I actually sat down next to my dad. Dad, do you know that I specialized when I was a teenager in your autograph? Did you know that?
Didn't help you much.
No, it didn't. I just thought it could help me with school reports and things. So I did that. But this is my father, as many of you watching will know.
Yeah, Pa, look, he's here. All he's doing is holding a microphone at a racetrack. I mean, what a cheap job.
Well, I didn't make college, Dad, thanks to you. So therefore, that's why we're racing drivers.
Okay, it was my brain that worked.
Yeah, it was easy. So,
look, last time I saw you at college, you were digging the bloody garden. All you did was put lettuces in at the weekends.
Is that what you called it?
Do you remember?
Yeah, that was boarding school. Oh, there we are. Oh, yeah. I'll sign there. So, Dad, as you look down this line of drivers, I just asked David Hobbs the same thing. You look around you and you realize that it was, even though that the drivers here span decades in really their histories, you realize that actually it was an era of very brave men, wasn't it? It was really an era of very brave men when you look at like the 917s and even your 956s and 962s. I mean, by today's standards, pretty rudimentary.
Yeah, they're very crude. I mean, even when you get in the 962 Lerma car I did this morning, and I'm talking to you about your car as well, I mean, you get in there, and when you really floor it, I mean, there's a hell of when you get 750 horsepower arriving in a hurry. I mean, it is a hurry. Whereas the more modern cars, it comes in very fluently. Yeah. It doesn't come in suddenly. So you're all the time really with maximum power. Hence you have twin turbos and all that sort of stuff.
Perfect. And now a shameless plug. You may notice that Derek Bell is wearing the latest in the Derek Bell leisure wear. I don't think it's called that, but Derek Bell, you can go online. There it is.
Don't shout it, because I know George will want.
Oh, George will want free ones. Okay. What's this in here? Everybody brings things to the autograph session to sign, and these are amazing. Are these like...
They look like pizzas, don't they? I thought they were pizzas.
I thought they were pizzas. Rennsport 4 pizzas.
That's right. But that's it.
It's very nice. So, Dad, when you knew that Rennsport was on, what do you look forward to most about coming to something like this?
Well, I must. All I can tell you, this one particularly, was the fact of last night arriving at the hotel from England, and looking out of my window, and there were all these guys out and girls out there, mostly guys. But the incredible thing about it was there was such a history of motor racing there, and there was all the guys, particularly me from Porsche, was, you know, Norbert Singer. There was Metzger, who did the engine. There was Valentin Schaefer, that was the turbo man on the 935s. And all these guys and the engineers that had come back just to come here, even though they've retired, it was just fantastic. And then you see the drivers, the sort of plethora of drivers that were there, and it makes you realize how lucky you were to be part of that era, and that we can all get on, and you can have 100 people there, all of whom are part of your racing history. And you don't think about it like that.
And of course, on behalf of a lot of people that, on a more serious note, weren't there, were unable to be here, who were alongside you for the drive way back. So, all right, well, we're going to carry on down the autograph line. It extends for miles, so I'll leave you to it, because I know it's very hard for a bell to talk and write.
That has been one of the hottest spots here all weekend, is the autograph line. It has been I think they've done like 10 different groups over the course of the weekend sitting there. And what that thing that looked like a pizza is a special book that debuted here this weekend called Rennsport. It's a look back at the previous 5 iterations of the Rennsport Reunion.
And you see the lineup on that autograph session. I mean, you're there with Derek Bell and Gerard Larousse and George Fulmer and Vic Elford, and the list goes on and on and on. I mean, these are magic names, and as we've pointed out a couple of times, they're not going to be here forever.
No,
so when you have the opportunity.
And every single one of those autograph sessions was different people. Like Norbert Singer would sit down in a group with team owners, Rob Dyson, who drove as well, but was better known as a team owner maybe. Alex Job sat through a session. I saw Elliot Forbes Robinson there, and Chad McQueen out on the racetrack now doing some filming.
I wouldn't be surprised if that's one of his dad's former cars. And the car ahead is the camera vehicle. It's a Porsche Cayenne rigged up for the purpose by Jeff Swart, who's not only a legend from Porsche racing in his own right, he is also a very successful and sought-after commercial director. Much of the footage you've seen of cars on track during our broadcast have been Jeff Swart's compositions, and now he's gathering more video with that remarkable vehicle. At any rate, let's go back down to Justin Bell now.
You know, it's quite crazy here because as today is winding down a little bit and fans are actually in a very relaxed state, getting even closer to some of their heroes. I got to tell you a funny story. It was Friday. I'm over, you can see behind me where the cars were. I was driving that K8. Dad's in the Löwenbräu Porsche. And Dad had just got out of the car, and I'm standing at the back, and there were a whole group of people, a lot of people wanting his autograph and to talk to him. And this guy looks at me and he goes, he can see, I'm like looking, trying to say, hey, Dad, and but this guy misinterpreted it and said, you know what, I know Derek Bell, if you want me to introduce you. And I was like, well, now I don't want to look like that guy. I don't want to be such an idiot. So I just stayed quiet a minute, and suddenly Dad went, JB, how are you? And he gave me a big bear hug. And this guy just turned around and saw to his friends, and he just went, oh, no, what did I do? I'm like, oh. But, you know, the upside to that is that he now knows I'm his son. The bad side to that is he didn't recognize me for who I might be occasionally. So it was very funny. But on the whole here, it really has been connecting the dots between all the drivers there. They've got, you know, people, the drivers, as I heard David saying earlier, almost like relatives now. All these decades later, they've become like brothers in arms or brothers with wheels. I'm just very lucky I'm here with my dad and my brother. He's the one that's 6'4", and just incredible. What a weekend. So I know it's fun. I've been watching everyone coming out for this last race, Ralph. And last race of the day, the last race of the day, of course, a lot of people have stayed behind to watch. I'm going to try and get the last couple of legends that I haven't got yet to talk, and I'll bring them outside and we'll have a chat.
That's a great story, Justin, and probably not the last time in your life that you'll hear it. But you touch on a good point there, and that is the camaraderie among these drivers. I believe, and I go yapping on endlessly about it, there is a special fraternity, a special relationship between drivers, especially drivers of this era, the Derek Bells, the David Hobbs, and so forth, who went through one of the most dangerous eras in motorsport, came out the other side, and now they have that shared moment. I've seen it so many times at so many different levels of racing, probably most poignantly in 1992 at the Formula One race at Kyalami, South Africa, when I was there on behalf of another network with my colleague Derek Daly. And the great Formula One champion, Ayrton Senna, came into the back of the garage, looked over at us, came walking over, and went straight up to Derek Ailey to extend his hand and welcome him to Formula One, because he knew Derek was a member of that exclusive group. It's really fun to watch. There's another car, by the way, we don't want to end our broadcast without telling you about. It's another one you can't buy, and it honors one of Porsche's great racing legends. It's a 911 in rally gear, representing right down to the paint color the car that Vic Elford took to victory in the Monte Carlo Rally in 1968. Elford, as we've talked about, a tremendous rally driver. That was his entree to motorsports. There's Vic on the right. He also won the 24 Hours of Daytona and the Targa Florio in the same year. I mean, it's great to see Vic here. Quick Vic Elford. And it's great to see that car honoring his contribution to Porsche's racing lore.
It has been I can tell you, Bob, I know we both are, physically getting worn out because we have just been everywhere over the course of the weekend. When you got here, the traditional kid in a candy store, right? When you walked into the paddock, for us it was early Wednesday or Thursday, and oh wow, look at that, oh wow, look at that, and running around with your phone grabbing pictures and talking to everybody and putting the miles in, walking around this wonderful racetrack, looking at everything. And as tired as we might be, anxious with one more race to go, I can't wait to do it again.
That's right. I must admit, I haven't been to the top of the corkscrew on this trip, and I'll miss that. Maybe I'll get there before it gets too dark. Some folks are starting to load up and head home. Can't blame them a bit. It is a school night. But they'll have another photo album full of experiences at this one-of-a-kind event, Porsche Rennsport Reunion. Let's go back down to Justin Bell.
Well, you know, when you go to a party, somewhere there's a host. Well, the host, if you like, of the WeatherCheck Raceway Laguna Seca is Tim McRae. Tim, we've known each other a long time. You've known everyone in this paddock a long time. This is a new gig for you. It's a new role here as general manager, I guess president of the track, right? How do you feel coming off the back of 5 weeks of some of the most spectacular automotive lifestyle action, I think, in the history of American motorsport and cars? We had Monterey Car Week, we had the IMSA race, and of course we end it with Rennsport Reunion.
Well, Justin, first of all, let me correct it that Monterey County really is the host. As the owner of WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca, I have to say that.
You're the DJ.
Yeah, there we go. And we got a great team here. And as you say, you know, we've actually had 4 major events in just under 4 months. We had the Superbike event in June. This has been wonderful. I mean, 4 days of Rennsport. I grew up near Brands Hatch. So, you know, when I was a kid, I was on the outside of the chain link fence watching some of the people that are walking around the paddock today and the cars. So, you know, for me, it's almost sort of a field of dreams. But from a business point of view, I took over this position in June 1st as the CEO of WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. This has been great. It's been great for the county. It's been great for the community. All the businesses in town. I mean, there's the natural ones. There's the hotel. There's the restaurants. There's the rental car places. But, you know, with all the infrastructure that this particular event has required, I mean, Porsche had an army of people here for the better part of a month with all their agencies, you know, building all the assets that we see here. You know, it's wonderful for the county. It's wonderful for the community. I think it's wonderful for motorsports in general, and especially the passion that this has had. I've had people come up to me from all over the states and even from overseas, so they've all come in here for this event.
What did you think on Saturday night, on Friday night, when you're watching Dr. Porsche standing up, basically dancing to Seal? You know, if you're like me, I'm going, am I in a twilight zone here? What Porsche pulled off in collaboration with the county and yourself and your team, I mean, I don't know. I mean, we said in 2010 we couldn't better it, but it is extraordinary.
That was amazing. You know, when the evening first started, you know, they had told us what the evening was going to be, and I don't think we realized what a special evening they had created, you know, with Danny Harrison and all the people, and, you know, when Dr. Porsche showed up and your dad was there and David Piper, and they got there and you thought, okay, they'll be here for a little bit and then they'll leave or discreetly, and they were there till the very end. You know, when Detlev got Dr. Porsche up there and he's embracing Danny Harrison, and you got Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead, and I mean, the Seal. It was absolutely wonderful. What a spectacular evening.
And of course, we'll see you next year, but I know we've got a lot of exciting things in line. There's a lot in the pipeline, a lot of dreams, but I think a lot will come to reality for this wonderful track.
There is. I mean, next year, obviously the reunion, the Rolex Motorsports reunion, is going to be celebrating 50 years of IMSA. And then we have IMSA coming, and what we're going to create is sort of Monterey Speed Week. So we've got IMSA one weekend and the return after 14 years absence of IndyCar, with the season finale being here in September.
Oh, incredible. I can't wait. I mean, I don't buy tickets, but I feel like I should. Guys?
Yes, you should.
Yes, you
as
should,
a supporter
Justin.
of motorsports. Shame on you.
You know, I just thought of something as Tim was talking about it. Here we are in the Monterey Bay Area, not far from San Francisco, and one of the most famous Porsches of all time was right down the street as we get ready to look at the list of winners from the weekend. Janis Joplin's car.
Mm-hmm. With that unique livery. Here's a look at our winners through 6 of the 7 groups. Group 7 is yet to come. So stick around. We'll be back with more as we begin to wrap up our coverage of a memorable Porsche Rennsport Reunion VI. We'll be right back.
The ultimate driving machines really do deserve the ultimate driving weekend.
This race is underway. But a few hundred meters away from the checkered flag. Wow! Oh no, a race leader!
This is so exciting.
Here we go. And there's a checkered flag!
Isn't it time you connected to something greater? Sometimes the best way to connect is to disconnect. This moment of escape was brought to you by Haggerty, for people who love cars.
Why do we do it? Why do we gather at a historic circuit? Why do we all roll out hundreds of Porsche race cars from museums, collections and garages around the world? Why do we apply fuel and spark to machinery tuned over generations of Porsche engineers and mechanics? Why do we leave pit lane and race these priceless cars? Why do we spend the weekend talking about flat 12s and livery colours and lap times? Why do we ask how it felt when the 917-10 came on boost? Or what it was like to take Mulsanne straight at 246 miles an hour? In the rain, in the middle of the night.
You know, race cars are meant to be on the track. You can leave them in a museum, but I think they should be used, and that's exactly what this event is doing.
It's a great sight for me to walk through and see these cars right, left, and center.
And you meet not only old friends, old drivers, old fans, old cars, you know. But having this surrounding possibility of being here and driving like I can drive today my old Lamborghini 86 makes it a unique event, which brings back very precious moment and is another fuel for the next couple of years.
Why do we all show up here every few years to see and hear and smell and be part of this magnificent spectacle? Why indeed?
Welcome back to Porsche Rennsport Reunion 6. Why indeed? From the traditional tapping of the keg to open this great event, all the way to the checkered flag on our final race. Coming up shortly, Group 7, the Flock Cup for 911 derivatives. From the turn of the millennium, it has been an absolutely spectacular weekend.
It's getting a little chilly out there too, Bob.
It is indeed.
The cloud cover is definitely overhead and everywhere as the cars roll out onto the racetrack.
While they do, let's take a moment to consider this great racetrack. Why WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca is the perfect location for an event like this. And the reason is fairly simple. It has been a star facility on the motorsport scene worldwide for a long time.
While it never held a Formula One Grand Prix, WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca has hosted 14 champions of the sport's highest echelon. Australian Sir Jack Brabham drove a Cooper Monaco to third place here in 1961, behind Sir Sterling Moss and Dan Gurney. America's first world champion, Phil Hill, scored a Can-Am victory in '66 in a Chaparral. Despite 2 world titles, Graham Hill found success elusive at the track with a best finish of 12th. The same goes for Jim Clark, whose Laguna Seca rides included a Lotus entered by California's Arciero brothers. The only world champion on both 2 wheels and 4, John Surtees raced here in the Can-Am in a Chaparral and his own Lolas. Danny Hulme's 6 Laguna Seca Can-Am starts for fellow New Zealander Bruce McLaren's team produced a win, 2 seconds, and a third. Triple world champion Sir Jackie Stewart finished runner-up in the 1971 Can-Am event for Lola importer Carl Haas. 2-time Grand Prix titleist Emerson Fittipaldi raced Indy cars here for a decade, finishing as high as second in 1993 for Roger Penske. In 1974, James Hunt was part of a match race between Shadow Grand Prix cars and Can-Am machines, taking pole and finishing second. After a 4th in the '66 Can-Am race, Mario Andretti became a Laguna Seca fixture in Indy cars, finishing top 3 in half of his 12 starts. 79 world champion Jody Scheckter raced a Porsche 917 in the same '66 Can-Am event for owner Wacek Polak. Keke Rosberg raced the revived Can-Am in the early 1980s, including a runner-up finish at Laguna for actor and racer Paul Newman. A decade later, Newman welcomed another world champion, Nigel Mansell, who had no luck in 2 starts in a Newman-Haas IndyCar. Canadian Jacques Villeneuve swept a Toyota Atlantic doubleheader in 1993. A year later, he finished 3rd in a Forsyth Green IndyCar, then headed for Formula One. But beside their world championships, this list of racing's elite share another thing in common. Each man either raced a Porsche, owned one for the road, or both.
So much history written in these hills above Monterey Bay. An easy drive from San Francisco, a longer one from Los Angeles, and a great destination. It's really a bucket list item for anyone who considers themselves a racing fan. And so much to see and do, even if you don't care about racing here on the Monterey Peninsula.
And that's some of the 4-wheel history of this venue. This racetrack is as well known for its 2-wheel history as it is for the 4-wheel history.
That's right. Remember the late lamented Nicky Hayden winning MotoGP race.
Right here.
Right here at Laguna Seca. What a moment that was.
Wayne Rainey, Kenny Roberts, Eddie Lawson.
Yep. Great American world champions. Time for our final race of Porsche Rennsport Reunion VI. It's the Flocht Cup for 911s and their progeny right around the year 2000. Another big field, 51 cars entered from a long, long list of applications to be a part of this great weekend.
Here they come up onto the front straightaway. The Falcon Tire liveried cars at the front, lights ablaze as we throw the green for the final race of Rennsport Reunion 6 weekend.
Arthur Mamorino in the number 1 car. And oh, watch them getting caught up. I believe that's Cooper McNeil in the WeatherTech Porsche going down the outside and sweeping into the lead through the Andretti hairpin.
That was maybe the gutsiest move of the weekend. He timed it perfectly and executed it spot on and takes the lead away. And I don't think the Falcon Tire guys thought that was coming.
What a colorful field, too. Cars so similar.
Oh, boy, now we're going to get into the aggressive part of the day.
Getting a little defensive there.
Boy, inside, outside. This is going to be fun to watch. And remember, guys, these cars are classics at this stage of the game now. All of a sudden, everybody's got the red mist, as they say. And around the outside of the corkscrew for the lead.
What a move.
Was that Estray in the 170 car? I believe it is.
That looked like a Porsche works driver type of move for sure.
Kevin Estray's car is a 2010 GT3 RSR.
Check this out at the start. 3 wide going down to the Andretti hairpin. Maybe 4 wide. A little puff of tire smoke, but no contact that I could see there.
And then look at this. At the top of the corkscrew, Estray comes right back and answers with an incredible move through the corkscrew. Now the Falcon Tire guys are back at the front. Cooper McNeil, by the way, wearing a 2016 GT3R.
There's the 59A of Andrew Davis, a 2011 911 GT3. Up front, Kevin Estray, followed by fellow works driver Jörg Bergmeister, then Cooper McNeil.
Yeah, Jörg's car is a 2012 GT3 RSR.
Ernie Francis Jr. runs 4th in his 2008 911 RSR with a full dance card of European races.
Estray's car, which is leading, was driven by Wolf Hensler and Brian Sellers during the 2010-2011 season. Included a win in the streets of Baltimore. Then it was brought out of retirement at the end of the 2013 season when it won Petit Le Mans.
Yeah, they went back-to-back. 2 different cars, but same drivers, 2 different seasons. The 10-hour finale to the IMSA WeatherTech Championship season. Yeah, speaking of WeatherTech, here comes Cooper McNeil in 3rd, 4th. Francis Jr. There's Davis in the 59A.
Yep, that's a 2011 GT3 Cup car. Perfetti, I believe, is behind him.
Yep, and the 59T, a 98 Porsche GT2 Evo 2. There he is. I mean, these cars are recent enough to be hot performers. Look at the way these guys are thrashing them around. What a great finale to the weekend.
I was just thinking that. Boy, hopefully a lot of the fans stuck around for this one because this is the best racing of the weekend. Guys all want one more story, don't they?
David Calvert-Jones in the middle of the sandwich there, second car from last. Tim Pappas That bright green metallic paint job.
Tim's got a car that's a 2016 GT3R. Ran the 24 Hours of Daytona and Sebring, Bathurst, and Spa with that machine.
Nose to tail off turn 11. 3 laps complete. Pappas looking down the inside there.
A little tipping of a wheel there.
As they race by our position, headed for turn 5. Whoops, somebody's gone around.
Yeah, that's over at the Andretti hairpin. The 57 car having spun around over there. Scott McPherson in his 2008 GT3 Cup car. Ran under the Team Seattle banner. Prepped for Grand Am Spec competition. Ran the Rolex 24 Daytona in 2008.
Team Seattle, a great effort. They've always run Porsches at Daytona to raise money for Children's Hospital in Seattle. He's got some damage there.
Yeah, right front.
I thought for a minute he picked up a traffic cone or something, but it looks like he's ripped something from under the bottom of the car.
Boy, this is a spirited battle. These 4 drivers all still going at it. Davis, Perfetti, Calvert-Jones, and Pappas all within the top 10, 6th on back. Watching this battle continue here. Davis in that 59A, and that's a 2011 edition of the GT3 Cup car. And then Perfetti is in a 1998 Evo 2 GT2 model.
And going backwards, he just got passed by both Calvert-Jones and Pappas.
Well, I think that's where we're going to start to see the more recent versions, right? Pappas's car is a 2016, and Calvert-Jones is a 16 as well.
Missed a shift or something because he dropped back quickly, but now he appears to be on the pace of the 3 cars ahead of him. Now Davis comes under pressure from Calvert-Jones. Change of position up front. Jörg Bergmeister takes the spot away from his fellow works driver Kevin Estre.
2 years difference between those machines. Bergmeister's is a 2012 GT3 RSR, and Estre in the older model, 2010.
Bergmeister's German, Estre from France.
Coming at you, Bob, the 2 cars look pretty similar until you get back to the rear wheels, and you can see an intake on the second car, the 2010 model.
I recall the Falcon team. They were in the IMSA series for a number of years. The team was run by well-known IndyCar team owner Derek Walker, who's now deeply involved in race administration and doesn't run a race team anymore.
Under braking, change of position. That was Bergmeister actually was in second, so 2012 is the one with the air scoops. It now leads the event.
And we saw the U.S. Air Force Thunderbirds going overhead not too long ago. And I just get that strong sensation that we're watching formation flying from the 2 Porsche Works pros. Nothing at stake here but pride.
Maybe a bar tab later tonight.
Well, there's always that.
Well, the temperature's going down. Track temp certainly going down as well, as these guys are whistling up the Ray Hall Straight.
Still sun on the hills, but heavy cloud cover overhead. And you're right, it is getting cooler rapidly. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if you looked around and found the first fingers of the famed Monterey mist coming between the hillsides. We used to come here to race, and if you were running very early or very late in the day, you ran a real chance of being delayed by that mist. And I can remember some races that had to be pushed up by half an hour or so because we saw that mist start to roll in.
You can literally watch it come off the bay and up the hill. And you can figure on the fact that you got a little, you can figure how much time you have left before it's going to creep over. Well, traffic's going to get in the way here and spoil the fun.
Meanwhile,
whoa, look at this.
Wow.
3 wide there going into Rainey. That's a little uncomfortable. One of the Flying Lizard cars right in the middle of it.
Yeah, somebody thought discretion was the better part of valor there, so he pulled off to the right and let these guys come through. Battle for 15th place, but every bit as hot as the one up front. We'll keep you updated on the battle at the front. It's Bergmeister over Estra at this point.
Oh, smoking the brakes a little bit. The 145 of Beggs is a 2004 996 RSR that competed in the American Le Mans Series from 04 through 06. Won in Mid-Ohio 2 years in 04 and 06. 19 podiums, GT class. A lot of great drivers behind the wheel of that car. John Fogerty, Darren Law, Johannes van Overbeck, Mike Rockenfeller, Mark Lieb.
Yep.
A lot of the Flying Lizard top shoes spent time behind the wheel of that car.
The latter two names you mentioned were Porsche Works drivers because Seth Nyman's team was the official factory entry in North American GT racing in the IMSA series.
I always loved that paint scheme too.
Yeah.
The silver with the red and the good looking race cars. So are these.
Yep.
Very recognizable paint scheme. You knew which team it was right away. The cars usually ran at the very front as well.
Yep. That small Asian tire company. These were the only cars that ran on Falcon tires. And they got a lot of mileage, so to speak, out of the program, did the company, before they finally decided to move on in their marketing efforts. Had success, got talked about a lot, pictured a lot on television, and that's the name of the game.
Did a lot for the branding of the company, didn't it?
Great example of what can be done. Find a good, reliable race team, and you'll get your name in the headlines.
I'm going to swap it up a little bit. Estra in the 170. Moving to the front for now.
That looked too easy. I'm guessing that was a little collusion. Of course, that may just be fake news. These guys are having fun.
Who hasn't this weekend? It has just been wonderful. You know, as you look at your racing calendar and you think about all the events you're going to, I know you and I both have this one with the big star next to it, and so looking forward to it. And it, without a doubt, did not disappoint.
We're both so anxious to put it on our calendars for whenever the next one is going to be, but we won't know that for a while yet. Figure 3 or 4 years.
They might surprise us and do one sooner than later, give themselves enough time to plan for the big 75th, which would be Rennsport Reunion 8. They put one in between. Some companies do. Oh, look out, the champion car.
Mirrors.
Yeah. Would hate to see a ding on that one, wouldn't you? Some manufacturers try to do various parties every year. But I think the gap definitely makes you look forward to coming back, doesn't it? Makes it a little extra special.
The calendar seems to get more crowded every year, so you've got to plan well ahead. Drag race up the Ray Hall Straight. Beginning now. This is for 6th place?
Yeah. Pappas right there.
Pappas is shown currently in 7th. So the 93, 93 is a lapper.
Donner in the 41 is in 6th, according to timing and scoring. But you can see Donner is behind him, so I think timing and scoring just hasn't caught up with him.
Yeah, I think
Pappas is in 6th, and Donner has dropped back to 7th.
You saw him flashing his headlights to try to get the attention of the drivers ahead that he's coming through. We see that so often in world endurance racing right now, and the headlights on these cars have become so powerful at night that there are now rules that overtaking cars cannot flash their headlights more than 3 times in a given time period. GT3R logo on the back.
Boy, it sounded good, didn't it?
Yeah, it does. It's got a real sharp, raspy sound, not that rumble that we expect from Porsches.
That was Larry Webster in his 2008 GT3 Cup car. Former machine from the Racer Group. Ran Daytona and Sebring multiple times. 55 that you saw. There he is.
Back up front. Bergmeister has opened up a little bit of a gap. Estra closes it right up under braking. A handful of laps remaining in the race. Curious. I meant to check this out, but if you're a works driver, you know, playing with house money, as it were, if you win, do you keep the trophy, or do you give it to the next guy in line who is not a professional driver? In this case, it'd be several drivers back before you got with this lineup of pros up there: Bergmeister, Estra, McNeil. Or do they let the pros keep the trophies?
I think this weekend is one of those weekends where just about all the participants are going home with something shiny.
Yeah. Well, they're making an investment, so. There's car number 111. Scanning the timing and scoring to. Oh, that's Jeff Swart, currently shown 29th.
Yeah.
In his 2007 GT3 Turbo. Being very careful. He's overtaking an older, slower 911 model, but he's being, whoa, and meanwhile, he's being overtaken himself.
Yeah, Jeff's car has actually done a lot of trips up the hill at Pikes Peak and has taken some first place money and titles out of that place with that car.
Oh, yeah, he's a legend on the mountain.
Whoa, somebody off into the dirt.
That's right in front of us. watching his mirrors.
I don't know if there's any contact there or not, but the 171, Robert Ames, that's a 964 Euro Cup car. It's the next Roland Ash car. Won 3 races in the German Cup.
That's got to be one of the oldest cars in the field. So he's got to be mindful of a lot faster people. Oh, I think he got some help there. That's not his fault.
The guy on the inside got up on the curbing, and I don't know if they actually made contact or not, or if he was just trying to get out of the way and ran out of track in a nervous moment or two.
Down the hill they come. Gosh, we've got 13 laps already. Let's watch that incident again. Watch the dark blue car second in line. No, I don't think there was contact.
No.
But I think 171 tried to adjust, found himself on a line that took him off into the dirt. Leaders coming through, that same group of cars you just saw in replay.
These guys are hustling these cars around, aren't they?
Yep. Time for about 2 more laps, I reckon.
The pace is definitely hectic, and the guys at the front are putting on a show that these cars are truly capable of doing. Kind of the modern day version of what David Hobbs was talking about earlier with the 962. You can put those 2 cars in the trailer and just take them to the next track, just wipe them down, they'd be good to go again, wouldn't they?
Yep, I've heard David tell that story with sound effects. You just get in a Porsche, start it up, it goes burp, 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 drive it, thrash it for 24 hours, finish the race, the car sits in the pit lane going burp, 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 burp. Pull it out of the truck, start it up again, and that's exactly the noise it's going to make.
David Donner in that 41 is fighting with the 85 car. And I think the 85 is actually a lap down or further back in the field because they're not shown right in order. Donner in 6th. Yeah, the 85 is actually in 19th.
Oh, 3 wide, getting way over in the gray stuff. That's a high wire act, Mr. Bergmeister. Probably not one that you haven't done before, though. Long, tall Jörg Bergmeister, who's got to be at least 6'3", 6'4". He used to pair up with Patrick Long, who is not 6'3" by any stretch, and they really were the Mutt and Jeff, if you will, of the driver lineup. About a foot difference in height.
Let's see what our flag man decides to do here. Time for one more? Looks like it.
Yep.
Turn 4 one final time. A little bit of traffic in front of them. One more run up the hill. Well, Jorg lapping in 127.5. Estre 127.3. Last lap. Bergmeister's best lap of the day, a 1:24 on a clear racetrack.
Trying to get around the outside.
Took him all the way out there, didn't he?
Yeah, that could have ended badly.
Sure could have.
But good driving habits prevailed. And appropriately enough, a Porsche factory driver will bring home the victory here in the final race of the day. Group 7, Jörg Bergmeister over fellow works driver Kevin Estre, and then IMSA WeatherTech star Cooper McNeil. They will head to the podium after finishing their laps of honor.
Well, some of the best action of the week and the weekend coming in the final race of the day. That was a really good race.
That was fun to watch, yep. Time for a wave.
Field stacking up behind him as they make their way around on the final lap. Here's your results, Bob. Jörg Bergmeister, Kevin Estre, Cooper McNeil.
Yep, Ernie Francis Jr., David Calvert-Jones, David Donner, yes, of the Donner family, for whom the famous Rocky Mountain Pass is named. You may want to look that up on the internet if you'd like to know more about the tragic story of the Donners. Alexander Marmorano started from first place and was soon overwhelmed by the factory stars coming through in relatively contemporary material. Augusto Perfetti was up close to the front for a while. Jeff Swart comes home 25 after a carefully judged drive. Tim Pappas must have had a mechanical because he was right toward the front in the early running, certainly a top 5 car, but he too dropped back. Hopefully a good time was had by all as the evening begins to close in on WeatherTech Raceway. Time for another visit with Justin Bell.
Well, the final visit, Bob, and I got to say that I think everybody here, on behalf of everybody that's down in the paddock and you viewers at home, I got to say that we're exhausted. We're not exhausted in a negative way. It's just you cannot have your emotions, your senses bombarded for 4 days and not come out unscathed. Just seeing the cars, seeing the drivers, meeting old friends, driving, laughing, talking, sharing food and wine with some amazing people. But there's one last thing I want you to think about. And that is, we are so lucky to have these famous old drivers around, that Porsche bring them together, because it's a very significant thing. No one's getting any younger, so Rennsport every 3 years or so is such an important reunion. And I think everybody here, including you watching, can say, I was there, I remember Rennsport Reunion VI, because this was a special one. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Justin. Ralph, how about some final thoughts?
Well, once again, the kid in me had an opportunity to see some of the cars I grew up loving and dreaming of, and also brought back the memories of what it was like to own my Porsche. And Bob, I'll tell you what, it gets you thinking about
going to get another one.
Another one.
Well, you do that. Here's a look at our winners in all 7 groups. A pair of victories for Gunnar Jeanette, and factory stars like Patrick Long and Jörg Bergmeister featuring as well, along with other drivers who know and love Porsche. It's been another great weekend. I wish we could tell you when Porsche Rennsport Reunion 7 will be and where it will be, but hopefully it'll be right back here at WeatherTech Raceway Laguna Seca. And we will see you then. Until then, for Ralph Shaheen, Justin Bell, our special guests David Hobbs and Bassem Wassef, I'm Bob Varsha. So long from California's beautiful Monterey Peninsula.